planning process. We'll still have the council meeting, et cetera. I do want to do just a little bit of a kind of touch point on where we're at from an overview of the budget numbers. I know we talked about this at the Finance Committee meeting for those who were able to join us. And Nate will bring it up on the big board. But I just wanted to, for those who weren't here at the Finance Committee meeting, this is kind of like directionally where the municipal side is. Per council direction, last time around, we pulled out the county side, which used to be in the municipal piece. And the school department obviously still has to come in with their final number on Thursday. But if you can maybe go up a little bit, Nate, into the, there we go. So maybe a little, right. So between the municipal proposed 26 appropriation, the school appropriation, and the county, at current levels, you go down a little bit, we're at about a 4.2% increase on the tax levy. If you can go a little more, just to kind of break that down. I think we had it by department. The municipal side is currently up about 0.2%, down from a 4.8% increase the previous year, and a 17.2% the previous year before that. The schools, so again, that doesn't include the capital where we're at now. There's, obviously we have some other areas to kind of decide on some of the larger requests from departments and staffing, which we'll begin talking about going forward. But just wanted to give folks directionally, we talked about it a little last time around, but we wanted to pull out the municipal, the school, and we still have Amy's final presentation, which will be on Thursday. We'll start off with her. And then if you can keep going down, Ashlie, I think we pulled out the county as well.
Nate has
or Nate, sorry, Nate. And then we sent you this calculator too, so you could, as you're looking towards final rounds of budgets, if you want to say, hey, what about not doing this? Or what about adding this to social services? How much would that affect the budget? Just to give you all a little bit of a better idea on how that might change things. We talked also a little bit about that 5% is kind of what Larry's currently targeting versus the 7.5% for the valuation increase last year. Really the focus is on the levy as a percent and how much that levy changes from year to year. And this conversation about valuation, we had a little bit of discussion on Friday about this, but following the budget process and the kind of locking in the levy and the commitment, I think we'll have some further conversation about what makes up that assessed value and what council and our assessor and other folks feel like is an appropriate valuation increase based on the commitment. And so that's kind of directionally where we're at. I know for tonight, we're going to start with our infrastructure planning piece, and then we're going to go to solid waste capital improvement. And the solid waste committee has met based on our previous discussion about solid waste and some areas we may want to go there to save some future costs. And then I'll discuss the potential creation of a Parks and Rec department, some outlines there, and then we thought it might be helpful. It was a very long meeting with outside organizations and social services last time around, but I know, John, you kind of mentioned, you have some ideas on where you'd like to be that's different than the manager's recommendation, and could be kind of one of our first council pieces to start creating alignment on what we think we should be at for that side of things. And then Ashlie will do just a quick review of, she's been keeping log changes on any pieces that council has recommended that they want additional information on, or changes the budget that we found throughout the process that we felt like was a miscorrection or a mistake or a correction. So she's been logging all those changes and shared them with you all. And then talking to Chair Beal a bit today, it seems like there's probably a good Thursday conversation following Amy and the school's kind of final presentation for us to kind of review left to right in the book. Today I was originally thinking, I'll pull out the staffing requests, the new things, and we'll just kind of lock that in tonight on if you guys are good with that based on what, but it seems like there wasn't necessarily enough time in some of these areas to really have a council discussion that folks may have had, hey, I really want to discuss that request. And most of the departments don't have a lot of new things. I think there's really 4 or 5 that have ones that especially could affect the budget, but there may be some smaller things that you have in your notes that weren't in the track changes or log changes from Ashlie. So we'll go kind of left to right in the budget book, starting with each department, and then we'll have department heads here for any kind of final questions you have. Hopefully, we'll be able to wrap most of that up Thursday and be in a good shape to go towards the April meeting to lock in at least the school side, but also discuss the city side. And for those pieces that we don't have alignment on, let's say, all right, we really want to give, $1,500 to the wood bank, but Tabitha is no way over 1,200. Hard pass. If we have to have the votes on those pieces for those like smaller sections, or if there's alignment to move forward with kind of where we're at, we can kind of go from there, or potentially add additional meetings on the municipal side next week. I know we've talked before, structurally, we really need to pass the school side, and that's the one that gets locked in for the referendum for voting in April. There is the potential, if you feel like you need a lot more information, there's any pieces here you're really not in line with, we don't have to lock in the municipal side on April, but due to all this council time, all the staff time, I really feel like we're pretty close to getting it over the line. Let's do our best to get there on Thursday, but if there's still more questions that we really want clarity on, happy to add some more meetings next week as well to kind of get there, so.
I did have a question. So the 5% increase, is that including new growth, or is that?
No, it's just his general.
Is that a 5% across the board increase?
That was his general expectation. We didn't really.
Okay, so then there'll be new growth too on top of that?
Yeah, and I kind of want to bring Larry back to why you had him on Friday to kind of take initial questions. And it feels like we'll probably need to come back with a much more detailed discussion about new growth versus not new growth. And, we have the breakdowns in that Excel sheet on if you change the percentage from 5 to 8. And I had noticed this, which was different from last year, but that in my review of other budget processes across the state, that a lot of councils, they set their commitment, and then they actually go into a next step on what they want the valuation to be, and what they feel like that it should be. I think it was Brewer that recently did that too. The council really didn't want to go up as high in the valuation as the assessor, I think, initially wanted to. So they ended up at a kind of middle zone. So said wow, there's a precedent for this. We kind of last year, we just kind of let the assessor set that valuation, and we move forward based on the commitment. But seems like, especially because we're passing it early enough this year, that we can also look at the valuation, how that affects the mill rate, how that affects the distributions, where we're currently at compared to state total valuations. So we can have before we lock that in, we'll have a more robust discussion.
Because it is, so when you're looking at a reduced mill rate, the question is, if we do everything based on 5%, then he could do a 5, but it wouldn't be an across-the-board 5%, it would be a total.
Right.
Whatever the new growth plus across the board to make that. Because I thought last year that we did a 5% increase in the valuation, and then I didn't realize until you just said it a few weeks ago that it was actually a 7% increase. So we actually had a larger increase than we planned for when we passed the budget. So if we could have that clear.
Yeah, based on the new growth, I think, piece, so.
Because that depends on, it's not the percentage, it's the dollar amount that people will pay, and that's what I'm interested in.
Right. And you can see in that Excel sheet, you can, not to say play around with it, but you can zero out the percent increase. Okay, this is what the mill would change if we had a 0% valuation. We talked about that at Finance Committee meeting a lot on Friday on just, hey, we could lower the mill rate a lot by really increasing the valuation.
Yeah.
And tell everybody, we lowered your mill rate to 16.2.
Yeah.
But then there's also revenue sharing, considerations you have to take into account. And there have been, I think I mentioned in Biddeford, they had a pretty significant valuation increases, a lot of new growth. Their mill rate went down pretty considerably over a 4 or 5 year period of time, and then they lost like $1 million in revenue sharing. So being able to also have those pieces of when those thresholds are, I want to kind of dial that in better too on like how close are we to those thresholds. And
I would recommend that any of the council that wasn't at the Finance Committee meeting to watch that meeting, because Larry did a great job of explaining how, on average it's going to be 5%. You have some industry that's going to be like 1%, but then you have other areas that might be 7%, but the average overall is 5%.
So he's not going to do it across the board like he did last year?
So.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that, Michelle. I think it was 5% ended up being the the like existing property owners and 2.2% was the new, but that was what I remember Larry talking about.
That
So
was last year.
Last year,
Yeah, so I was wondering if he was, that was my question.
if that's what he's expecting here, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then one last note, sorry, before we kick it over to Sara for capital, we have some department heads especially that are relative to capital, so please, Sara will give an overview presentation of where she and I kind of landed on a manager recommendation, but, feel free to bring folks forward for additional information. And also just a little note on TIF funding. I know there's been a little bit of confusion kind of back and forth. There's kind of what we can spend TIF on, what we could if we redesigned our TIF districts, and for things like the consultants relative to TIF district reimagining, SIP planning, these are the types of things which we've spent TIF money on in the past. Like, we're trying to pull those pieces out of the budget so that we don't have as much impact on the new levy, and we're using sort of unspent TIF funds, and we'll talk in April. I have that on the council agenda for the specific things that I'd like to put in unallocated TIF for, spending from FY '25. Some of the other areas, because of the debt service decrease, there's a much larger unallocated budget for TIF for FY '26, but that doesn't have to be part of this budget cycle. And I think there's a variety of things the council may want to consider that could be in line with the way the current district is imagined, but also may require a change if you want to, social services is one of those things. Like, we couldn't do any TIF funding for social services. That have to be at a FY '26 funding, but we could potentially redesign TIF districts to do that type of thing in the future if we wanted to. So that's just a little FYI that for folks like the Heart of Ellsworth request for additional TIF funding, some of these other pieces, those may be more in line with the way the TIF district is currently imagined, but a good bulk are not, and really seems like we're probably going to need a similar process here on this is a significant economic development funding that we could go towards. How do we want to spend it as a council or not? Or, I think as Michelle mentioned last time too, you can also keep encumbering that it's its own account, for some larger projects. That's another avenue we could go towards. So, any other questions? So for next week, it's going to be Amy and the school's numbers, and then we'll have department heads here for the kind of final left to right of the budget on some of the major pieces, and we'll kind of take a beat on where we're at and decide what we need from there. So. Great, with that, send it over to Sara.
Hi, everyone. Sara Devlin, Deputy City Manager. I'm here tonight to go over our proposed projects for the FY '26 Capital Improvement Plan. This is intended to be a one-year snapshot of the CIP, as we are going to be working over the next 6 to 8 months on developing a 1, 5, and 10-year capital plan that will really be a comprehensive evaluation of our assets and help inform future CIPs. We're hoping that the plan will be one that can be updated regularly, so it can be a moving, evolving plan that's updated year to year. So with that in mind, this year we asked department heads to submit their priorities for this 1 year FY '26 for funding. You can, you did, thank you. So here are the departments that submitted. We had Public Works Department, Public Safety, Facilities, Ellsworth Public Library, and the Ellsworth School Department. And tonight I'm going to go over just a brief overview of all the submissions, update you all on what Charlie and I are recommending to be moved forward. If there's really detailed questions, department heads are here. I'll try to answer as best I can, but we can also have them come up for a resource. Just a little overview on what the approach was for Charlie and I in this plan. We wanted to keep it in line with the budget and have it be a really lean plan. So we kind of took that lens to minimize any increase to the tax rate. We evaluated each department head request, and then we thought about different funding options that we had. So we have remaining FY '25 ban from the local roads, which is about $486,000. And this would require us to seek council approval and have conversations with bond council to use those funds for things other than local roads. But we think that that's an option for funding for this cycle. We have the FY '26 general fund, we have future band bond, and private donations. So I'm just gonna get right into the memos. So I handed out a packet tonight, it should have been at your desk, which you had updated information from the information I emailed yesterday. There was an update to the spreadsheet and the memos. So I'm just gonna kind of briefly go through those in each item that was requested. So first off, we have the highway department. They have requested an excavator and trench box. Those items go together, really. And this recommendation is requested from the highway department, but we talked to them and they were accommodating to split that between the highway, water, and wastewater. So you're gonna see that item, those three items, the excavator, trench box, and camera in those three budgets, just to make that clear going forward. So the excavator, the city hasn't owned an excavator since 2015. Since then, they've been renting an excavator annually, and it's cost about $500,000. From 2015. We rent one every year for 6 to 7 months. It's about $30,000 annually to rent it, and the life cycle for the excavator is about 20 years, Mike. So this would allow us to be flexible with our projects. We wouldn't have to rely on the renting company, and the wastewater department and the water department and highway would all be splitting that. And the trench box is to go along with the excavator for safety when digging. The camera, we haven't had a camera in the city since 2006. We have historically been contracting with the vac truck to do camera inspections. We have purchased a vac truck, so if we're going to continue that service, it's about $40,000 a year to do approximately 1/3 of the sewer collection system for camera inspections, and about $90,000 for culvert inspections is what we spent last year. So the camera, it's a total of $126 split between the three departments. The sidewalk plow, our sidewalk plow that we'd be looking to be replacing is, we've had it since 2011. It frequently breaks down. We get lots of complaints about the sidewalks not being plowed. Charlie and I kind of went back and forth on this one. It is definitely a priority. We think we could elevate this with the balance of the band money that's remaining after we've selected the projects, but we didn't submit it for consideration yet, but it's definitely the top priority. Just to replace the aging one, that's $100,000. The request to purchase a sidewalk paver and sidewalk roller, this is a total of $300,000, $250 for the paver, $50 for the roller. This again, we rely on rental equipment, outside contractors. Public Works has really been trying to beef up their in-house paving operations, so this would again allow for flexibility on projects and allow the cost savings with owning our own equipment. And finally, in the highway department is the harbor dredging. There is not a memo in here, as we are still working regularly with the Army Corps of Engineers. We just met with them last week on the dredging project. We don't even really have a cost estimate yet. This $500,000 would be for match for that project. It can be offset with work done by Public Works. If the dredging material gets taken out and deposited on land, Public Works could dispose of it. That would offset the match, but we're still working with Army Corps to develop the scope and budget for that. So this was an estimate, I think, from last year, but we did want to carry it over just to highlight that we are still considering that. I don't know if you want to wait until the end for questions. If you want questions now, what would be?
Can we do it by department?
Sure. That's fine by me.
And I could give just a quick on just maybe a little more background on with reasons for the yeses and nos here. For the excavator and the trench box, especially split between the three accounts, that trench box is only really maneuverable by the excavator. So to me, there's a safety aspect too of having our own excavator to be able to transport the trench box. If it's in January and we have to do a dig and we need a trench box, we're not trying to rent one and get the trench box over there. So there's that piece, plus just the cost savings for that.
So we don't have an excavator anymore?
All right, so we have a small.
I was gonna say, we have an excavator and then you have a seasonal one, right?
We rent a bigger excavator.
You got it up to the microphone. That's what I thought, okay.
Mike Harris, Public Works Director. So we have a small excavator. Small excavator will not move the trench box. The only, and we don't have the big excavator 6 months out of the year. And we're paying $4,500 a month to rent this thing. We rented it for 10 years. We spent $540,000. We could have bought 2 excavators in that time. So yes, the trench box is too big for the small excavator that we do own. We need a bigger excavator for the courthouse road and some of these other bigger projects that we're gonna be doing. And I just can't see how it physically makes sense for us to pay.
It's okay, I wasn't saying yes or no, but she had said we don't have an excavator.
Yep,
And
I know,
I just
so-
didn't, we do have an excavator.
have a
just
small
need
excavator, yes,
bigger-
we do.
We need a bigger one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I said no to the plow, even though I think, we had plow breakdown twice this year. There was a lot of complaints about the sidewalks. The plow that we'd be getting would also have like the blowing capacity, so we could really, I do want to kind of consider that as a future bond ban cycle. There is, my current requests are 242,000. That's if we want to reallocate the ban. That was kind of what I directionally saw as, okay, there's 400 and some thousand left in that ban that we didn't spend on roads. Kind of use that as my general budget for, in the more near term, what we could move forward on. So I do think the sidewalk plow could be considered there. It's an important, upgrade for next year to get better sidewalk plowing. We got a ton of complaints on that. But maybe that's, once we're a little deeper into the full SIP planning process and analysis, for consideration from a future bond ban as opposed to this one.
A question on that, do we have any, excuse me, do we have any sidewalk plows at this point?
Yes, we have
We-
2.
They both broke last season, though, right?
Right.
Yeah, multiple times.
And they're plows only, they're not like the one that we would be getting for this would have like the blowing capacities, so you could really dial in where the snow goes, make sure all the sidewalks are in much better shape.
So if we don't replace one this year, what would we be doing next year for?
We'd be in similar shape with
Sidewalks.
the 2 sidewalk plows, which are prone, and they're like the push plows, like, they kind of push things to the side. They're not,
Yeah.
it's not gonna really dial in. We'll probably likely have a few breakdowns, and we'll deal with the repairs, and, we're not gonna be able to dial in the sidewalks.
How many
the same.
miles of sidewalks do we have? Or maybe it's 2 questions, and do we plow them all?
Maybe Brian for that?
I'd have
It's a good, great question. Thought about lying.
Pardon?
That's
Thought
a
about
capital
lying.
improvement plan.
I appreciate you not doing that, good call.
Thousand.
Brian, highway foreman. I haven't measured the exact mileage of the sidewalks, but,
But it's the urban core, it's out on High
yeah.
Street, it's
It
Oak Street.
starts, we go High Street as far as McDonald's, then we go up as far as the dry cleaners, and we come all the way back, and we go all the way up to the Shore Road. Plus everything in Bridge Hill, we go to the top of Bridge Hill, almost to the Christian Ridge Road, and the Surrey Road goes as far as Laurel Street.
Okay.
You get all the side streets.
Yeah,
There's a lot of stuff that gets done
And
there.
State Street, do we still,
We
we
do
do
State Street.
State Street, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
State Street and out of State Street.
All the way out.
yeah.
There's a
so
lot
I'm
of,
saying 17.4.
probably, pretty close.
I'm actually
If you were
gonna,
gonna make up a number, I'll make up one for you.
I'm actually gonna have that number soon, because I just have been talking in communications with one of those street scan companies
Oh, yeah.
to look at doing the street scan for our next CIP, so they need to know that number. So I should have that shortly for you, actually,
Thank you.
and for you.
The Baylor's was a yes too, just in kind of some of the
We
solid
haven't
waste.
gone there yet.
Oh, sorry, never mind.
The,
Back up just a bit here. Let's go back to this excavator business. You mentioned that you have an excavator that won't move your trench box, so we must have a trench box?
We have a smaller one.
And a small excavator won't move a small trench box?
We have a smaller trench box. It's not a full-size trench box. What is it called, Brian? It's a
Service box.
Service box. But when we're doing big digs down to water main breaks and stuff, we should have a bigger trench box. We just don't have one. So we've been using the service box.
What size excavator does the city own now?
You might as well just stay up here for a
Yeah,
while, Brian.
We got the E58 Volvo, which is like 11,000 pound machine. And it doesn't have the reach to pick the trench box up. The trench box is 7 feet tall. By the time you get that on the top of the hole and try to pick it up and set it in the hole safely, and it won't do it.
So a 7-foot-high trench box is considered a small one?
Yep.
How high?
But it's like 7 by 10. So that's more or less just your service box where you're gonna work in the general area like that. But if you're gonna start laying some pipe, you're gonna need a 20-foot trench box, 20 feet long, that's wider. And you're gonna need at least a 16 or 17,000 pound machine to pick that up.
Right, so the proposal that you're talking about, a trench box, is the same height as the one you
Yes.
have, it's just longer?
Yes.
Do you have more than one?
We get 2 service boxes, that's it.
How much does that?
They're both about, one's just a little bit smaller, the other one's like 7 by 6.
You got 20 feet now,
No, the one we won is 20, would be 20 feet.
but if you've got 2 small ones, that could make one big one.
Well-
I'm asking
No,
questions.
not really, because you
Okay.
don't have the safety into it. And the
Okay.
one that we've gotten dinged by the Department of Labor on, because it's got some safety issues with the stiff arms and stuff, and we'll have to make some replacements, because you can't buy parts for it.
And the requested excavator that you're thinking about, how many pounds is that one?
17,000.
And you're considering that a big excavator?
Well, yeah, bigger than what we got. Go from E58 to a 160 John Deere, which is what we can carry on our trailer. It's the biggest one we can carry on a 50-ton trailer. Other than that, we gotta get a low boy truck and trailer, which we don't have.
Is that the similar size to the one?
Sorry, I
that's
don't buy
rented
that
on?
story, but go ahead.
What's that?
Don't buy what story?
You're renting what now?
135,
Okay, and what do you wanna buy?
a 160.
Okay.
Either 160 John Deere or 160 Volt.
This is a picture of a Komatsu, have we got that far yet, or? are
The
you-
Komatsu?
This is a picture of a Komatsu.
We used to own one.
That's just a stock picture I put on.
You
there.
just put on there, okay, all right, very well. And you mentioned that the expected life is 20 years plus. I want to challenge that a little bit. I don't think the equipment is going to last 20 years for your use. I'm not in disagreement with this, but I might be in disagreement with buying a 17,000 pound. Are you sure you don't mean 17 ton?
I can't answer that, 'cause I didn't read I haven't read up on that yet, Steve.
Where's 256,000 coming from?
That's the price of the 160.
Price of a 160?
160 John Deere.
That's where you're coming up with that? Okay.
Yes.
That's around 36 or 7,000 pounds, I believe, not a
Is it, I
17,000.
didn't look at the weight on it. I know, I was going by the height of the machine.
We can get an answer for that and talk on it.
If you're buying a 17,000 pound machine,
Well-
you're wasting your money.
Yes. I get it.
If you're buying something bigger than that, then I understand. I'm just challenged with that 20-year business, and I heard 20 years plus.
But you're not gonna be using that year-round like a contractor would at 8, 10, 12 hours a day steady for the 10 years. There's
Looking
gonna
at
be,
the hours of the rented machine in the last 5 years from Eagle Rental, I would agree with that statement.
That's why we came up with the 20 plus, because we know we're not gonna use it like an Archer or something like that, we're using it every day.
You'll never make one go 20 years. You'll spend a fortune making that happen. Go ahead, guys.
I think, Patrick, you had a question?
Yeah, it was answered.
Okay.
Yeah, this one was a lot of learning curve too on that trench box and how, there was, I think last year I'd listened to an NPR story, 250 plus workers died in parental trench cave-ins over the last decade. And, a lot of, when I listened to the story, a lot of it was, they were working with that trench box. And making sure that, safety is big importance. We made a big investment in it last cycle as a council. But also just seeing the rental piece too, that we're already renting this excavator. Oh, and if we have it all the time, we can, much easier to transport these trench boxes and just bake that into the safety culture and have the equipment to do that without having to rent an excavator to take this box, seems like something we should move towards. So that was the yes there.
Charlie or Sarah, just clarify, when we're looking at the department requests at the dollar values for things that are being split 3 ways, is this the total cost or the 1/3 that would go to the city?
That's just that department's portion.
So when we're talking about an excavator, it's 3 times.
Yes, so it's not 3 times, because it's 60% highway, 20% water, 20% wastewater.
Okay, I heard 1/3 split, so was
Well, it's, right, sorry.
but not equal. Okay,
It's split between the 3 departments, but not equally.
thank you.
Yeah,
And we can get the weight on that excavator and come on Thursday, we can bring that back.
The camera, or do you have a question? Go ahead.
go
No, okay. I've
I,
talked to-
just speaking on the longevity of the machines, do we currently have a maintenance schedule for our equipment that we track?
Yes.
And, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, every 500 hours, we usually change the oil. All the oils, and go through them and grease them. They're greased every time you use them, but
And we actually log that?
yes.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
how old is the excavator we have now? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, I didn't, I think we bought that in 15 or 16. Is it 17?
Okay, so it's 8 years old, and no issues with it now? I mean, you're not gonna come in another year and say, we need another excavator?
No, that's still good. We've had just wear and tear stuff that's on it, we've had to fix.
Okay. Is that that one's used year-round, though?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And then I have one more question. The camera, because we've had a camera before, and it didn't do what we wanted it to do, and we still had to have people come help us and do things, because we also didn't have enough time to get the things done.
Well, we bought the camera around 2006, it was right when I started working here. As a matter of fact, the first use we did was when we did High Street last time. The camera, the issue we have with the camera is, one, it broke down a lot. But also, now, the uses for it are, like last year when they were doing the culvert inspections, when Kern Vortex was doing the culvert inspections, Waters used it in the pipe, so the cameras that they have now are much more robust and more advanced than the camera we bought back in 2006. But we pay Vortex $42,000 to camera and jet and back a third of our system every year. And so we bought the back truck, so we don't need to contract them for that. And we can all use the camera. We can use it to inspect our sewers. They can use it to inspect culverts. Waters uses it to go inside the pipes for their filters and stuff, to look at stuff in there. And so, rather than paying Vortex a bunch of money, $6,000 a day roughly, if we bring them out here for camera work.
So my question is though, do we have enough people? I mean, you've got a lot that you guys do in the summer months and stuff. Do you have enough people that are gonna be able to go in there and spend the time to go do the cameraing and things like that? Or are we gonna need to still have some help and have them come do bigger jobs and?
No, I mean, it's like, so for our piece, the wastewater piece, our guys would do that, the highway guys wouldn't do that. We would need somebody from the highway to drive the truck for us, if we were gonna do the vac and the head at the same time. But running the camera, any department could do it once they're trained. You only need 1 or 2 guys to do it, to go out there and drop it in. It's very user-friendly, and then we can camera whatever we need to camera and not have to pay somebody.
And how often do we have someone come camera for us? Not
For
the
me-
Vortex truck, so outside of the sucker truck.
Oh, the biggest person we have camera for us now besides Vortex is J.R. Anderson.
Yeah.
We use J.R. Anderson quite a bit. Anytime we need camera work done, he's locally, he's the one that we call if it's, unless it's a big culvert that his camera won't do. His camera will do the bigger ones too.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just looking for similar, because I know you recommended no for the sidewalk paver and rollers. Are there similar justifications? I see that we've rented for a lot. Is there like, we've done this many miles, it costs this much to rent the equipment?
Well, for the sidewalk paver and roller, there's a couple of things. One, we don't have one and we don't rent them. Like if we have to have sections of road paved, we have to hire that. So Northeast Paving or somebody would have to come and do
It's
that.
fully
for
done
us.
by another contractor?
And so, and then, going forward, if we're looking at doing the courthouse road, that would allow us, so the sidewalk paver allows us to do sidewalks, the sidewalk paver allows us to do small portions of a road. So, for example, one of the small side streets, like the street in front of Fogtown, that has issues, we could pave that with a sidewalk paver, not have to have Northeast come in and pave it. The bigger stretches, we can't do with that, it's too small for that. The main drags will all still be done by somebody else, but the little side streets, anytime we dig and we have to, you know, put the trench in, you know, backfill and hot top it, you notice a lot of times that there's a bump when you go over those trenches that we've installed, just because we hand place it and then we use a hand compactor to do it. If we had a paver, that would come out a lot smoother and a lot better transition for you guys, and so. Yeah, and then the roller is not just for paving, so we maintain a lot of gravel roads in the city, and we go out and we grade them and we put calcium on them in the springtime to keep the road from eroding so easily. But that would be even more effective if we could use a roller to also compress that before we did the calcium. So we would probably use it for that as well.
Could they build new sidewalks, or is it just
Yeah.
for repair?
We do new ones.
I mean, is there any sort of estimate, just for like the courthouse project, the amount of sidewalks that'll need to go in there?
0.22 miles, so.
Yeah, we were thinking one side would be .22, we had a planning call. To me, one of the reasons this is a no for these two is like, I think there could be some cost savings there as part of the Cohorts Road project, but that's a whole separate funding stream, a whole separate piece that I want to, it's not like an immediate, plus like we're going, I think tomorrow we're going to
Bar Harbor.
Bar Harbor's highway, like we're in, talk to folks from the Brewers Highway Department, like their public works teams can pave parking lots. So like you could use that roller maybe for like the parklet level area. But to me, unlike like the sidewalk plow, I could see bringing that forward because, we've got a little bit of surplus, some 242 to get to the full band that's still left if we wanted to go that route, to the 46 to bring that in. We know what we'd use it for this winter. We had some breakdowns. The sidewalk paver and the roller, like, seems like a capital asset, could help, but I feel like Sarah's gonna be doing a much deeper SIP planning process, a lot more data, longer term as well that we can start looking into. To me, those two are like not right year one. Let's think a little further on that, especially with the Courthouse Road too. We're building a construction road, on Merrill Lane. We're not doing the long lane construction road, but Merrill, we're essentially would be clearing and then building a construction there in year one. We're not, sidewalks aren't until FY 28. So there's like not as pressing of a need to move forward in those two pieces right now.
Did you say that Bar Harbor had their own equipment, their own sidewalk? Is that what you said?
I don't know, we're visiting their highway department tomorrow, just to kind of see, they have a highway garage, I think, Tremont just also recently did a new highway garage. We've talked to the council, I think that's it's not in this SIP process, but, whether the school buses could be in an expanded highway garage. Some of these other pieces were kind of bursting out of the seams. We've got storage areas there now. It's something I think for the Tremont got a pressure bill on spending to help budget that, but the highway department, we're really trying to do some best practices, look at other organizations, and kind of see what they're doing out there, which I think will better inform these next SIP plannings on what our team needs.
I'm gonna throw a wild idea out there, that, especially with these other communities around that might not, I don't know if they already have this equipment, but the, like, community sharing, like, if they have a paver roller, and are doing sidewalk projects there, is their ability to pay or borrow from Bar Harbor to do, because we really don't have, right now, we're not looking at many sidewalk projects, specifically kind of planning for a courthouse, correct? I know that there's other uses for the roller and these pieces, but.
So a couple things. We don't necessarily plan for sidewalk projects because we don't have the equipment to do the sidewalk project. So, but there are plenty of sidewalks that we can do. It's just how much do we want to spend having somebody else do them, or how much do we want to spend having ourselves do them?
Yeah.
And the number of times that we're on the ground, for water main breaks and things like that, or even, like Red Ridge Road, where Sarah lives,
Thank you, Mike.
had a
What's the address?
And we patched it, but we could only do so much because you can only do so much when you're hand placing stuff and using compactors. Sorry. I wasn't thinking.
I remember my time at Atlantic, that those pavers were not only were they expensive, obviously, but they were kind of a pain in the butt. I just remember them not being very long lasting. There was a lot of issues that came up with them, but I was on the paving crew, so I don't,
Right.
I just remember it was a piece of equipment that caused a lot of headaches there.
Yeah, and I think it depends on A, use, B, is it a full-size paver or is it a sidewalk paver, which is a much smaller unit? so
Yeah.
Doesn't take as much wear and tear, things like that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we recommended it because we think it'd be beneficial for the city and for all the projects that we have coming up. And, you know, the majority of our goal for all the stuff that we ask for is typically because at the end of the day, we think it's gonna be a considerable savings to the city, in the long term. Even though you have to spend money in the short term to get it.
Yeah, and well, we have such a need for more sidewalks in the city too. So, thank you.
The idea of sharing with other towns is interesting. Maybe bring it up at the League of Towns
Yeah.
meeting on the 16th.
Yeah,
we can do
I
Just
have
throw
been
it out
told
there.
that that's a good thing for grants too. Grant funders love to see that communities are sharing their equipment. So just something to think about, sleep on for us.
Like it.
So from the highway department, the city manager recommendation is 210 from the unallocated FY 2025 ban. Good to move on to the next one? Okay, I gotta get mine to move on, sorry, Ashley. Okay, solid waste. So I'm just gonna caveat this with that, there is gonna be a solid waste discussion after this, agenda item, which could impact the capital plan, but for right now, we're gonna move forward with what we know. So the two requests from solid waste were, 2 vertical balers for $32,000 and building repairs for $100,000. So the 2 vertical balers are the original balers at the solid waste department from the early 90s. So there is a need for safety, for efficiency. They continue to break down costly repairs. So that is the request from solid waste for the balers. For the building repairs, also from the original building, which I believe was actually in the late 80s, because the building was built prior to the balers being put in. The roof has not been repaired since the original build. The insulation has not been updated. There is some exterior deterioration that is happening that needs to be repaired, and those estimates are $100,000. The 2 baler purchases will not impact, have no impact on the future of the solid waste, that discussion. We need those regardless of that, the re-envisioning.
Yeah, and this was a yes/no on the, yes on the balers for, it seemed like a very necessary, needed thing for a long time coming. The building upgrades, I'm not necessarily opposed. Again, these are like no's, but like not ever, and even not soon, but not in this kind of first tranche of remaining or FY '26 general fund. Those are, when I say a yes, that's what it's like, considered for the remaining on the band funds, if the council was to be amenable to doing that change, and/or if it's a smaller item, yes to a FY '26 actual tax dollars as part of the levy. But the building upgrades, I kind of want to consider those as part of a future SIP planning that, we have Pump House Point and that's, and the highway department, the highway garage, and these other pieces, like how do we kind of look at all of our, and this building itself, there's a lot of buildings that are in a lot of deferred maintenance on some of the capital building assets we own, and I kind of want to see that full slate of what the full, deferred maintenance on those buildings are before we say yes to the upgrading the solid waste. Not that it's not necessary or needed, but not quite yet there yet.
So the manager recommendation from here is for the 2 vertical balers at $32,000 from the unallocated FY '25 ban. I don't know if you have any questions for solid waste. Okay, moving on. I know you're definitely gonna have questions on this one, so Scott, you better be ready. Fire department, this is under public safety. So fire department has requested to replace engine number 7 which is approximately $1 million, and tanker number 4 for $600,000. Engine number 7 is 18 years old. Useful life is 8 to 10 years for an engine. Engine number 7 also is only suited for is not suited, excuse me, for a career department. It's a two-person engine. It's exceeded the engine hours. It currently is our backup engine, correct, Scott? Our backup engine, okay. Tanker number 4 has exceeded its useful life. It is 29 years old. The useful life is about 15 years. It currently carries about 1,250 gallons of water. I think industry standards is to carry about 2,000 gallons of water, given our size and the rural nature of some of our municipality. Again, it also has current mileage and an engine life that exceeds its useful life. There are some options, some funding options, purchasing options, excuse me, for the two pieces of equipment. Departments around the state are looking into leasing engines now. It helps with routine replacement, so we do have some leasing information. It is about the same price to lease versus to buy. I think that's pretty much I gave you the update on their life. This one was in the manager's recommendation to not fund with the two funding options, either the FY25 ban reallocation or in the FY26 general fund, but it was, put in the consideration for a future ban bond cycle.
Yeah, I just note on this one, I kind of, much needed piece. I know we've talked to the fire department too, just about, you saw that call volume increase that we talked about in the dispatchers, area so truck and some of these other pieces lasted a lot longer probably in previous Ellsworth days, but we're getting a lot more use on them. They weren't a lot of maintenance. I do think it needs to move forward, but I kind of just want to have a little bit more detailed information, and there's not sufficient in what's remaining on the ban to cover that. We could potentially think about a lease if this council thought otherwise, and we can hear from Scott. There's some very good reasons why we might want to move forward and get more information for, an FY26 lease if the council wanted to kind of disagree, or if we wanted to go into a future cycle for leasing or a more upcoming bond ban cycle.
And I would just also note that the fire department's original request was to replace engine number 2. With its unknown state, it was still being evaluated, but it's back and ready to go.
Oh, yay. That was gonna be 6 months or more. Wasn't it? That's good. Good news.
I have a question for Scott. Scott, if you want to do an engine, you would need time to design it beforehand, have it built, so what is the timeline?
Potentially, depending on what path we follow. We can also do a stock truck where we can do some modifications on it. So it could be, if we do a stock, it could be as little as 6 months. If we do a full build-out, we're talking anywhere up to 24 months for delivery. Because the hardest part of that process is not the truck itself, it's the chassis. The chassis take so long to get in, and then the manufacturer takes them and they get the truck built out for us, so.
And any of the trucks that are in stock are low enough to get through our doors?
Yes, yeah.
They don't have to
So
be custom
when I
built.
put a request in them, I tell them that we have a height limitation, and they'll tell us what they have based on our height limitation. For engines and tankers, what I've seen so far from what they've given me, we're well underneath that header height downstairs. So future years, when we replace a ladder truck, that's gonna be an issue, which you had the last time.
Yeah, yeah.
Was the price you quoted the stock or the custom?
Stock.
Stock, okay. Custom assuming much more expensive.
It can be, yes.
And the lease, usually all the leases is just, it's a funding, so you know.
So there's two options that one of the manufacturers has. It's basically the traditional lease purchase type deal, or they also have what they call the lease turn-in, which kind of similarly follows what we're doing with the police department and stuff like that, where we go we'll lease it for 8 to 10 years, and about year 3, they'll ask us if we're going to finance it out for the rest of the cycle, or if we're gonna look towards replacing that truck at the 10-year mark. And at that point, they start a new build, so that come year 10, we have that truck in place and we can just do the swap out and start the new process. One of the reasons why we brought that forward is pretty much it starts putting us into that replacement cycle where we're not doing emergent replacements. And what they found is that for most career fire departments, the maintenance costs start to increase around years 8 to 10. And so we're trying to balance that out by keeping those maintenance costs down and keeping the trucks on a regular replacement cycle. Just an option.
Did you have numbers, yearly payment for a lease on a truck like that?
Yes, so depending on which truck. So for a stock fire engine, the average yearly cost would be about $129,000 a year. And if we were just to do a tanker, it'd be roughly $72,000 a year. And that's for the turn-in program.
So, are these the 2 oldest trucks that you have?
Yes, sir.
They are.
Yep.
And is it fair to say that there's no newer trucks that need it worse than the older trucks? Replacement. And I guess maybe another way to ask that question is, are these trucks we see out all the time, or are these trucks that sit in the garage all the time?
So there's one that's a reserve truck that sits out at Superior Dock that I'm paying $6,000 a year for housing.
Which one?
That's the engine 7.
Engine 7 isn't here, you're
Correct.
paying to store it.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a reserve, so when like a truck downstairs goes out of service, we pull that truck in and we use that as a replacement.
So it's a 2007, but it's a spare. It's not a daily used truck.
Correct. The tanker truck, which is the 29-year-old truck,
That's tanker 4.
tanker 4, that one is downstairs, and anytime that we have to go to an area of Ellsworth that does not have a hydrant, that's the truck that goes out the door with the engine. It's the only way we can conceivably get 2,000 gallons of water on scene immediately between 2 fire trucks. So we're still short when we get out there. By us replacing the tanker and putting a 2,000 gallon tanker downstairs, we're increasing our available water between the fire truck that's going out the door and the tanker truck that's going out the door, which basically adds additional minutes to our capabilities when we get on scene.
Will you still need to store a vehicle at $6,000 a year if do you have enough space to put fire trucks, or are we gonna be storing more?
No, the plan is not to store anymore. So if we replace a truck, a newer truck that's coming in here, we'll take another truck and move that into reserve. So that we're bringing the newer truck into service, and we're moving the next truck out into reserve status, and still maintaining some life to it, but making sure that we're keeping the newest trucks in service, so that we can keep those repair costs down.
So would you sell the one that's in reserve?
Well, it depends on
Can
your.
you?
Yeah, we'd either sell it or do a trade-in.
Oh, okay.
So their
Could you
quotes right
trade it
now.
on a lease?
Yeah, yes.
Oh,
So their quote, they gave us some ballpark figures for the trade-ins. Because their age, we're not gonna get much for them. I think combined total is roughly about $35,000, rough total for both trucks,
Collectively for both.
collectively. So if we just purchased the tanker, I forget what the replacement was on that one. I think it was 25. Forgive me. If we replaced engine 7, it was roughly $25,000 for engine 7. If I replaced tanker 4, it was about $10,000 for a trade-in on tanker 4.
So what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, is the 1997 is the oldest, and the 1997 is used on a,
Pretty regular basis. So, like I said, anytime we go out into an area of Ellsworth that doesn't have a hydrant, which is pretty much anything in North Ellsworth past U-Haul, no hydrants out there. And so that truck has to go out there. It also goes to all the neighboring communities around us. When they call us, it has to go by agreement. It has to go to all those communities around us.
It's too bad we can't get paid by the communities.
Unfortunately, with a mutual aid agreement with Hancock County and the state, we can't charge for services. Not for mutual
No,
aid.
should you really?
Because it's because it's
Yeah.
reciprocal.
It's reciprocal, so you wouldn't charge.
It's reciprocal. We get their help, we give them help.
Oh, that's good.
So that's a signed agreement.
I just struggle with having old equipment to work with and new equipment, all these friggin' pickup trucks riding around town. I really struggle with that process. That we've got all these new vehicles riding around town and something to work with. We've got a 30-year-old truck. I struggle with that.
It sounds like the answer is more leasing, unless I'm misunderstanding. It'll cost us a little bit more, but we don't have to put that burden on the next council in 10 years to, oh, now we need another $1 million truck, now we need another $600,000 truck. It's just automatically replaced every 10 years. Things stay fresh, things work.
How long before you're gonna come and wanna replace that ladder truck?
3 years. Its life expectancy is 20 years. 2030 is when it's due, which means we have to start planning for it in 27, because it's about 36 months to replace the ladder.
Do we never consider like lower mileage used vehicles for any of these pieces? We always buy new. There's not like a used market that we could go into.
Well, there is, but we're gonna wind up in the same scenario that we're in now. So if somebody traded in a vehicle, they're in the same position that we were in. It was either aged out, or the mileage was too high, or there was mechanical problems, so they traded it in. And so we're getting somebody else's problem. This is what happened when we bought the truck 4 years ago. Again, the recommendation was to purchase a new one. We followed the guidance of what was given to us. We wound up purchasing a new one, a used one, and we're bearing the repercussions of that. So if that's the direction you make me go, then that's what I have to oblige to, but I wouldn't recommend it, because again, we're inheriting somebody else's problem.
So do you have a capital replacement plan? So you know that because you've got several trucks down there, so this is 2, and you've got the ladder truck in 3 years.
Yep.
What's coming?
So we've got, engine 2 should be, well, these 2 trucks currently. Engine 2 and Squad 5 would be coming up. Squad 5's a 2012, which is the one we purchased 4 years ago. Engine 2 is the one that just came back from repair. That one's a 2016. So they're all, and I shared it with Sarah, they're all kind of tiered out as to the years we need to start working with them. And then you gotta consider that the ambulance really has a 5-year life cycle, and then we have to look at either buying a new, brand new ambulance total, or doing a remount where we buy a new chassis and we put the box on the back of a new chassis, which is very common practice.
But that's already been done once to that truck.
Correct, you're allowed twice. So it's got one more cycle to it. So,
So is the $1 million, is the lease for $1 million, and then?
It's over.
It's over, okay, so the way I'm thinking here, if we're paying $129,000 a year, that's about a 2.9% interest rate, which is much less than what we would get if we were going up to bond. Because we're gonna be at like 5%.
5 for the
If-
bond.
Or 5 or 6, even with tax exempt borrowings.
I forget what he said PNC's interest rate was.
It's on the 10-year lease, it's 5%.
Yep,
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's 5%?
yep. If it's on an 8.5-year lease on the turn-in, it's 4.9.
And
That's
don't
for the
forget-
engine, for the fire truck, not the tanker.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for the engine. and it's 5.1 for the tanker.
I just want to throw out that leasing sounds wonderful, sounds fresh, it sounds all of those things, but we're talking about equipment that's pushing 30 years old. So if you're gonna do a, would you say a 10-year lease, you're robbing yourself of some extra
The
capacity.
Right, and I don't disagree with you, but we're not gonna get 30 years out of any truck in this system anymore.
I agree with that, but you might be robbing yourself out of capacity. If you're,
I think the fire engine you're gonna find is gonna be right on the line. The tanker, you may get to the 15-year mark, and you're right. But I, based on my own experience and, you know, across the country, we're kind of all in the same way. 8 to 10 years is pretty much what you're gonna get out of a fire engine without paying for it after that for maintenance costs.
but they make awfully good spares.
They do, and so the plan is, you know, like I was saying, is one of the trucks downstairs would get pushed over into reserve, because we know we can get another 5 years or so out of reserve.
And that couldn't happen if you leased that one.
Correct.
The one downstairs, if that was a lease, you couldn't push it into reserve.
No, you're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
I agree with Steve, too. I mean, leasing in that capacity, Steve, you're right. This is not, that's not any more than financing for 10 years.
Right.
And it's not a better deal because the interest rate's not less. So we would be better off to finance something like that at the same rate. And then, like Steve said, if you finance it for 10 years and you get 12 years, you've just saved yourself 2 years of payment. So. I thought it was a lower rate too, Tammy.
I think, you know, it's workable for us, as, you know, as Sarah works with all of us on building a CIP, and we're gonna follow the CIP. I just would hate to see the city back into 15-year-old trucks, and now we've got huge maintenance costs again, and we're coming to you for emergency replacement of vehicles. We were this close in December when we had 2 frontline engines out of service, and we were riding in a 30-year-old truck to run the calls, because that was the only truck left in the fleet. I don't want to be in that position again, and I don't want who replaces me to be in that position again.
But if you get 2 years out of that, you're not gonna have that much in maintenance costs as far as your lease is concerned, the dollar amount of your lease. You're gonna pay more money than you would for the maintenance for a couple of years. So,
Yeah, to me, that's why it wasn't like not in this budget cycle, we have budgeted for maintenance and these other pieces, you know, and potential consideration for bond ban. Let's have Sarah do the full SIP analysis of the entirety of the fire department's fleet, what's in there, see some of these options in the lease. If we have to, kind of like the back truck, where we, you know, have a deferred lease payment, and we want to go that route, you know, we could consider that mid-year, or if we want to just consider this on the next bond ban cycle, you know, for that type of thing, or financing, like just a little more robust data. As Sarah, she's jumping in right into that. After we approve the 1-year SIP plan, she's, you know, going into much more detailed, much more data-driven 1, 5, 10 years, including roads, including all of our assets and facilities, including a lot more. So it's not the end of the conversation on these trucks going forward.
For tanker 4, is this the only rural, like your no hydrant truck that we have? So right now, if this goes down and we don't have a backup,
We don't have, yet. So let me explain. So all the fire trucks that we have downstairs have the capability to pump off water.
okay.
Tanker 4 has the ability to dump water out the rear of the truck into drop tanks. So when we go into other communities, it has the ability just to open a lever and we can offload 1,250 gallons of water in a couple of minutes. None of the other trucks have that capability. We have to literally pump. So when we go out into the rural areas, even in Ellsworth, having that dual capacity, being able to either dump water or to be able to pump off water, is what we want out of a tanker truck.
Gotcha.
Tanker truck is not something that goes to an accident.
No, not typically.
Is the other one that goes to an accident?
If it's in service, yes,
Number 7?
yes. If it's here in the building and it's being used to replace a truck that's out of service, yes.
Right now, it's up at the storage.
Correct, it's up at Superior.
And then tanker four would be something that we would actually want to use in case of a wildfire or something
Absolutely,
like that here.
absolutely. It's
And
part
that's
of-
our only, that would be one of our,
That if we have a wildfire scenario, that truck is automatic out the door. It's part of our response plan.
Yeah.
It goes with the engine.
Do any of our mutual aid towns have tankers?
They do.
So we're not the only, it's not the only one.
Right.
'cause
So
they
part of
get
our,
them from
part of
yours.
our response plan, because if you remember discussions we've had in the past, even though we have a lot of water here in Ellsworth, access to it is very limited. That's our biggest problem. And so having water mobile is a big deal. But what we've also found is mutual aid around us here is great. We have it coming to us, but it's a long, it can be 10, 15 minutes before they get to us. So there's a breaking point where we have enough water, and then we don't have any water. And so by adding more water to our own fleet helps our department be able to do our job more effectively with what we have for available water.
Do you have foam trucks? Do you have trucks that do foam?
We do, yeah. We've got 3 trucks that do foam.
I think what I'm hearing with the trucks is, if not this year, next year. I mean, this is one, as Charlie pointed out, it's not no, it's not yet, and it's out here as a future. But it sounds like, depending on how everything filters out, if it's not this year, it ought to be next year.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why we pushed it forward is because this has been, Tanker 4 has been the one truck that has been kicked down the road every single year, even before I was here. And another truck has been more important, and it's been sidelined and taking care of the next truck in mind. So, you know, our concern is it's gonna keep getting pushed and pushed and pushed every year. It's a new
So,
year.
do you see that one as a higher priority of the two?
Yes, we need the water.
Okay. It's helpful, thank you.
Has there ever been a time in Ellsworth when the city has kicked something down the road for immediate gratification that was a good idea?
I can't answer that for you because I've only been in the city for 4 years.
Anybody know that answer?
The library
It just
project.
seems, it seems like the, it seems like, the-
10 years ago, I wouldn't be here now.
But I
there you
think,
go, and it seems like, and I'm not
I don't think it's
hate
from
spending
instant
money.
gratification, I think it's because of budget.
Yeah.
Planning. It's not that,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
Well-
think anybody's like, no, we don't care about the fire department, we don't wanna do that, I think it's,
Well, my question is this, it just seems like the road thing has been kicked down the pike many times, and now all of a sudden, we've got a lot of roads. And I'm not, look, I hate spending Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth money. I'll be the first, I think everyone in this room probably knows that, but I'm not sure.
Your hand's a little crazy.
I guess I
Never
just
hear it
want to
say
throw
that.
this out, that, you know, pushing that off, sometimes is a more expensive option.
so this is why I wanted to have this conversation on Thursday, is so we can, because we can't afford everything.
I understand.
And so if you want to, so that we can get a unanimous vote on the budget, we need to agree on what to take out in order to put something back in. I think, and that was the whole reason I wanted to do this Thursday and possibly another day.
Okay.
So that, no, I'm not saying not to say anything, I'm just saying that this, you're exactly right. We need to look at the budget for priority.
Measuring the moment can be expensive.
Yep, exactly. There you go, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, continuing with public safety, we're gonna move on to the police department. The police department has 3 requests. The first request is to pave the parking lot for the police station. It was in the estimates for the renovations last year, or a couple years ago, but it fell off due to high prices. The parking lot is breaking, the rear parking lot is breaking up, The front parking lot is also breaking up. I believe Public Works went out there and did some reclaim with some asphalt. It did help, but another issue that they're having with that is it's tracking inside the building, damaging the floor, causing wear and tear on the carpet. So this request is for $125,000. And there are some pictures of the parking lot in there in your packet. The next request is for a sign. This is a sign that would be out in front of the building to make the police station visible from High Street. That's still called High Street? Route 3? I don't know when it changes, I'm sorry. There's been a lot of citizen comments that the police department is not visible. So City Manager Pearce decided that it would be a good idea to include this one in this capital plan. There's a picture of where the sign could go. It could be a digital sign. It could have other information on the sign as well. And the final capital request from the police department is a radio console, and this is really in line with their budget request for a new dispatch. This would be a console station that would be required for that dispatch to do their duties and perform their work. It's estimated to be $28,000. There is about just under $10,000 in forfeiture that the police department has said that they could put towards the purchase of this equipment as well. And there is a lease option for this, and it's around $32,000 for that lease option. So those are the three department requests from Public Safety. The manager recommendation is to move forward with the sign request and the dispatch radio console pending the approval of the additional dispatcher, and that would be moved into the FY26 general fund allocation.
And just a little more background here. The sign one thing seems to me, like a safety thing as well. High Street, extremely high visibility, knowing that the police are up there, a ton of traffic coming by it. There's also the digital sign aspect of it. If we do put our sign up there, I would like to have control over that digital sign, so we're not Ellsworth Police Department sponsored by Jim's Hot Dog Stand. But city council meetings that are happening here, this, that. So to have some, visibility into the police signage, notifying people that this is where our police station is, to me, this one. And especially, we're gonna be here 20 years, we're moved in about a year and a half now. I know it's not our building, but to get some mileage of that sign, like, let's do it. The parking lot, I'm in, kind of a no-now situation. We don't own the property, but we're gonna be there for 20 years. And the parking lot's in tough shape. In the back area, like, they're dragging stuff in, from dirt-wise, and it's not an enormous lot area, but I kind of want to, we're doing a bunch of roads this cycle. Sarah's and team are going to be doing a full analysis of all of our roads and sidewalks, and to me, that's one, like, let's put that in a future potential road consideration when we're paving those areas to, see what that would be as an addition for paving those two lots, but not a right away. So that was, and the dispatcher is, yes, well, I think to your point, Michelle, and tomorrow there's, it will start on Thursday from budget to budget. There's really like 6 or 7 areas of the budget that are in that category. If you want to pull a $600,000 tanker truck, that's going to affect FY26. If we want to approve that dispatcher, and we have notes here that we can talk more on Thursday, like that's 100 and some thousand with fringe per year that we'll be taking on in cost, plus this 28,000 to do that piece. So if we don't go with the dispatcher, that's my request, is that that the fire department calls are increasing, the police, like you saw those graphs, we should move forward on that. Our chief and deputy chief are covering dispatcher shifts on occasion. But if we're trying to save funds for this cycle, and we want to say no to a dispatcher, it would also be probably no this year to that 28,000. And we can talk more with the team on those pieces, but this year I felt yes on the sign, but also I don't feel like a bond, even though it would be here for 20 years, I don't really, feels like and also the price wise, like that we should put in the general fund, which is why that's X'd on FY26 general fund, if the council were to move forward with that 15,000. Same thing with the radio dispatch, didn't seem like something you should be bonding for. It's probably, that one, unlike the sign, wouldn't even likely last the full 10 years, so that one I think should also be in the FY26 budget cycle.
I have a question on the radio console, just trying to understand the memo.
Maybe.
$28,000, but it says something about spreading out over 3 to 5 years. So is it $28,000 for each of 3 to 5 years, or $28,000 once?
I think the spreading it out would be the least part. So it's 28,000 for the total cost of the.
Right.
Including maintenance.
So this is the purchase versus lease would be 3 to 5 years.
Right. The
Not-
3 years is a warranty on the equipment for the
Okay.
purchase.
It's where, they were in the same paragraph of, it could be a 3 to 5 year lease. And then the cost, I just wanted to make sure that that was not an annual cost, that was the one-time cost. Okay,
How old are the
Thank you.
dispatch centers that you have now? Did those go in brand new with the building? How old were the ones that you left?
Well, almost 10 years, I think.
You don't need to replace them every 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, so these current ones we have are on a maintenance plan for 5 years, and the equipment has to be replaced every 5 years to maintain the maintenance plan with the company. So we do replace certain parts of the equipment. It's budgeted through the IT department. They carry all those costs. It's all electronics.
thank you.
So, I'm sorry, just for my own clarification, there's been a lot. So that 28,000, if we want to do FY '26, but as a lease, we could lessen that. In
No, it
FY
would
20
actually increase for
Oh, it
lease
would
because
increase.
of the interest on the lease.
So it'd be more than 28,000
Yes.
per year.
Yes.
Okay.
It would be lower, like, upfront cost, but it would be spread out.
Gotcha.
Tammy?
So you have $10,000 in your forfeiture account, so would that actually only be 18,000? Right, so that you'd have so you'd have 28,000 and then 10,000 in revenue for it, okay.
Oh, so it's actually a $38,000? Oh.
No, it would
No, it
offset the 28.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, I thought
yeah.
you said the opposite, okay.
That is not clear in the memo. Because the memo says 32, this says 28.
So the 32 is the lease option. If you take.
Okay, so next time, separate paragraphs. Here's what if we buy and here's if we lease, so they're not blended. Okay, just trying to catch up. Thank you.
Is the paving, I agree, it's something that seems like it can wait, but was that a surprise per the lease agreement for that building? We knew
So
that
that's
going into
purchase,
that,
okay.
that we would need to be responsible for the property grounds and everything.
I don't think, no, it wasn't a surprise.
No, it was discussed when the whole thing was going on, and I think Steve might remember, or that.
It's my favorite project.
Yeah, I know, I know.
Yeah, you were very much.
The cost at the time of pavement was skyrocketed through the roof, and so everybody wanted to hold off on doing any paving, so none of that was included for the renovation cost.
See, a great example of good kick the can down the road, Steve.
There's one.
Instant gratification or for a reason?
Although I bet paving is higher now.
And I think one of the, kind of the urgency thing that we were kind of discussing is just being in there a full winter and just seeing, you know, we put a lot of money and pride into keeping it looking good and stuff, and that back parking lot it's really affecting the rug, and the other parts of the building, so.
And there was never a plan for the property owner to pave that. That was all on the city and the renovation.
And Steve, this is one I think, consider next time around, but also like the earlier we do this, we're there for 20 years, it's probably gonna be falling apart, but that's like 15, 16, we ain't, you know, it's gonna be in really bad shape at some point in time, so.
We should do it once in the 20 years.
Maybe we do it like
is
the
what
next
you're-
1 or 2 years, and then that's the ballgame. You guys are gonna be,
And I want to correct myself, they are in separate paragraphs, it's just trying to read while listening and catching up is hard, so it is done that way. Never mind, I'll just leave it at that.
Maybe if we buy that sidewalk paver, we can do it.
There we go.
you know, that
One
size.
trip at a time.
I wasn't joking, if it's part of the SIP and we do
Yeah.
end up buying a sidewalk paver,
That would be.
Mike's eyes just got real big. I think he'd send some guys over there. looking
Brian's
for it.
back there going, what? And Mike's like, yeah, we could do
I'm gonna
that.
say, there's some shock and awe faces in the
I
audience.
There
looked
really
at it
are.
first. But it probably couldn't do it.
This is fun to watch. You guys need to sit closer together. So we can-
There's a reason he's back.
I'm sure. Do you have a question?
Oh, that was exactly what I was going to say, if we had gotten the sidewalk paver and stuff, that's because spending $100,000 on the parking lot that isn't ours, even though we agreed to do the maintenance, is a lot to swallow, I
It
think,
really
so.
is.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
there's a bit of like, yes, we are in a reimagining of the highway department and try to get to some of the more premier projects, like we have all these clay pipes and we keep, we did 3 water mains in the same area, like we should just dig that whole thing out. We have the team and the expertise, let's do that. But, it's a time and resource thing too. So I think, Michelle, you were kind of alluding to that, like with the camera, now we're doing maybe the track, maybe we can take that new excavator over there and tear out all the track pieces, but like, now we're doing a road, we're doing a track, we're doing water mains, we're doing a paving of a lot, and do we have to hire a couple more people? And now that's a long-term established cost, so there are a bunch of equipments we could, but we're getting there. This is an awesome team.
Whatever they want. They gotta-
I actually had a volunteer from the fire department, not a volunteer, he works for us, but he was ready to come out there with the track with the excavator, and me too. I don't really have a license for it.
But what better way to learn than?
What better way to learn?
On-the-job training is important.
Any other questions for the police, public safety? Okay, moving on to facilities. Facilities, we have 2 requests, the City Hall cupola and Knowlton Park splash pad resurface. So starting with the City Hall cupola, from my brief research this afternoon, I think it might have had some substantial repairs in the late 90s. Jim did do some repairs to the windows last year to help with some of the leaking. As you can see from the memo, our tarp system is installed to help collect a lot of the leaking around the cupola. MMA did come in and identify this deteriorating cupola as an issue with our risk assessment. Just continues to create larger issues with the leaking and water damage underneath in the building. So that's why the cupola was on for this CIP. And the splash pad at Knowlton Park, we all know that the splash pad has not been resurfaced since it was installed. It gets pressure washed several times a season. The algae builds up on the standing water, creates a very slippery surface for the young users. It's about $25,000 to be resurfaced with a specialized polyaspartic. Thank you, with a quartz slip coating, or quartz non-slip airgate. So, and there's some pictures of that. So those are the 2 requests from facilities. The city manager's recommendation is to fund the Knowlton Park splash pad resurfacing with FY26 general fund allocation.
A little more context here. Start with the Knowlton Park splash pad. That's a this summer thing, and I don't necessarily want to wait till FY27, so I would be coming probably to council. We have in the reserve account a Knowlton Park,
There's $17,000, I'm sorry, on the spreadsheet it says this, but I didn't say it in my presentation. There is $17,000 in a reserve account for Knowlton Park, so I think the recommendation would be to use that now and then reimburse that, that account with FY26 funding.
So we funded FY26 for reimbursement of those accounts, but we'd come forward so that we can actually get it done this cycle. So it'd come to council in April, or in May, and then move forward with that, and then the FY26 funding would be there to reimburse that account. That was kind of my thinking for this one.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but that will have to be closed for several days for the resurfacing, correct?
Up to 5 days, they need to grind it.
Can you come up to the?
Sorry.
You did not hide.
Drag everybody up.
I know, I'm doing a great job.
So, yeah, that, Jim McLean Facilities, that surface, what they do is they grind it, several times, big grinders. They have a lot of hand grinding to do around all the jets. They bring it down to a smooth surface. Right now, it's porous and just the concrete surface itself is open, where it used to be painted, and the paint's all gone. And then they put 4 layers of this polyaspartic with a quartz aggregate non-slip texture. And we get to choose from about 20 different colors for the in-ring and the out-ring. And this is just the circle part of the splash pad. It's not the whole concrete area back there. This was just the splash pad area itself.
Do they say how long that's gonna last?
20 years or better.
Really?
Yep. We've used it downstairs in the fire department for the 2 bathrooms and the back bedroom remodel, because those are concrete floors. The guys love it, simple cleanup, doesn't stain, doesn't wear off. You've probably seen the commercials, people put them in their garages, they're water resistant. Currently, in the summertime, usually every 2-3 weeks or so, I gotta go up there and spend about 5 hours pressure washing the splash pad, because the water just kinda sits on it, it gets algae bloom, it gets that brown, slippery, kids are crashing, burning. With this type of product, it's simple. Go up there with a mop, a little bit of bleach solution, you're done.
Should I be trying to bring this to April, and would that have to have been public hearing if I wanted to bring it for the reserve account to move forward on this piece? Just, I'm wondering if May would be a little too late to come to council on that splash pad. Because we want to probably, it's gonna get warmer. I know it's Maine, so June really, but there's already a bunch of people over there, and it's kind of a theme. I think you probably will see additional funding in Knowlton Park, and I think we gotta do a little better on Knowlton this year.
It is weather dependent, so we'll have to wait for it to warm up a little.
Yeah, so I spoke with the contractor today, and we had a conversation as to his availability, timelines, how long we have to close the area off. He did say that after the last contractor show, home show, he's got 30 appointments. His book is filling up quick. If it's something that you want to go forward with, I need to let him know now, because he's currently 6 weeks out, and he's starting these other 30 estimates. So I'd like to try to get him booked for June, if possible, if we were able to take that reserve money now instead of waiting till July 1st, because if we wait till July, new budget 26, we'd have to wait till July and August are the big months. And to close that off for 5 days in July and August, I'm gonna move out of the state for the next 5 days. I don't know about you all, but I would highly recommend it.
What do you think, Tammy? Do you think I could maybe just, let's try to lock it in for June? Yes, we're gonna, we come in May to kind of approve the budgeting part of it, but, if there's a little bit of a deposit we had to put down, it seems like the council's gonna wanna do the splash pad.
Other than that, it would be probably September, October would be the absolute latest that he could do it because of the temperatures.
I don't know.
I don't think is the agenda closed for?
Agenda's not closed, just public hearing to get it in the
I don't think it
newspapers.
is a public hearing. I don't remember.
For reserve, for an unbudgeted reserve fund purchase?
Mhm.
Not budgeted.
Let me look too into our Knowlton, do we have any Knowlton Park remaining as for putting a deposit down?
Well, we have some remaining, but it's gone because of the playground labor on the repairs and the next 3 months cleaning bill, power.
Do you have to put money down with the booking?
No.
Okay.
No, we've
Book it.
really
Okay.
established a good,
Okay, if they need a little bit of a deposit from that, and then May will come back for the actual
Yeah.
reallocation with the public hearing.
I think that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, I
Great.
would book it.
And it sounds like that's the soonest he could do it anyway, so we're
Pardon?
not, it sounds like that's the soonest he could do it anyway, so we're not losing time.
Yeah, May,
Good.
June
Good.
would be,
Okay.
That's great.
So we'll look to book in early June and get it on that May agenda to make sure that we can fund through some reserve, and then FY '26 put it to replace the reserve in there.
Yep.
Okay.
For the children.
Hey,
It
it
is
makes
for
my
kids,
life a lot
exactly. You don't want your
easier. 5
kids
hours behind a
falling.
pressure washer, and I walk out of there like this.
I don't care about you, it's the kids. I'm just
Takes
kidding.
me 3 weeks to recuperate so I can do it again.
I'm sorry, Jim, that was just kidding.
I mean, it could be parents chasing their children.
That's for calling me Tammy all the time.
Yeah, parents chasing the children, and then they all end up in the
Yeah,
hospital.
I've never
Yeah.
fallen doing that. That's-
No? Go up on the 4th week.
And the cupola was kind of a no for similar to the building upgrades at solid waste, and so I really think it needs to be done, but I just kind of want Sarah to get through a more robust capital improvement facilities, what the total figure is, and how we kind of dial in. Also hoping, I hate the CDS, maybe some grant on historic preservation. There's a ton of building upgrades we need to do. I hate to delay too much longer, even though Jim's rigged up the most amazing elaborate bucket system up there that could be done.
Not me.
Not you.
My predecessor.
Your predecessor. See? Look how long it lasts.
But yeah, and it's been here.
Somebody, all I do is go out and pump the buckets out.
Yeah, as somebody who also has a cupola at my house that just constantly leaks. I try to tell the courthouse folks it'd be nice to have, this has a cupola, the library has a cupola, maybe the new, and they were like, those are the terrible idea for this exact reason, so.
So those totes and trash cans and buckets, those are catching water.
So, somebody predecessor, I don't know if it was my immediate predecessor or before that person, they had gone up and they had strung tarps in the rafters up the stairs in the attic underneath the cupola, and then strategically poked holes in the tarps and put trash cans underneath them. So it catches most of the water that leaks from the cupola around the stairs. I mean, it doesn't get 100% of it because we have HVAC systems, ductwork, stuff like that, it splashes all over the place. But it catches the majority of it. And, so once the trash cans are full, I go up with a electric pump and garden hoses and run it out the window and pump it out.
So,
That's called down east ingenuity.
Yeah, whoever did it, they did a
I
great
think we've all done that
job.
in our attics at some point, but
It's like every home improvement.
I think, again, this is not the no, but maybe not now. The other thing I'm gonna suggest, just because things matter, I saw this originally, cupola, City Hall cupola, and it's like $200,000 to judge up a cupola. Now, let me finish. I think that it would be really helpful in our shorthand that we say like cupola roof repair, or something to really make very clear from the beginning for anyone glancing at this. This isn't just prettying up, that this is repair and risk assessment issues, just to make it clear to anybody just even glancing through that this isn't just beautification, that this is a structural issue.
So what happens with the cupola is that has a copper facade on it. And that copper facade is flat iron soldered. Roof, walls, everything. So what's happening is, when I was up there on the lift 2 years ago rebuilding the exterior windows, which stopped about half of the water because the windows were in such poor shape that a lot of the wood I had to replace and reseal the windows and paint them. So that, talking to 2 different roof companies, flat iron solderers are not a very common trade in the state. So what they both told me was they couldn't give me an estimate. They would have to just start deconstructing the roof and then working their ways down the walls. Because what's happening, if you look at the picture up above or behind you, the water's running down the center of the cupola, the dome structure. When it's hitting the catwalk, we cut up pieces of the rubberized roofing. There's a 2-foot catwalk that goes around that railing. And so it's running down between the copper facade and the underlayment somewhere, and it gets down into that, where the catwalk is, and there is an OSB style type underlayment underneath that's wicking the water to the outside railing that's around the cupola, and that's where all the water's running in currently. That OSB style underlayment that's underneath there, we cut up 3 different places. And again, that was just mulch because there's so much water underneath that rubber roof. So basically what they're looking at doing, the structure of the cupola now is solid because it was built back in the 30s, it used hemlock. It's drastically stained because it's been leaking for decade or two, I guess, as I've been told. So they'd have to deconstruct all that copper and more likely than not be able to reuse it because, like around the windows, that's all formed on a press. So it all J locks into each other and then they flat iron solder it. So that's where the expense comes from. It's basically Pandora's box. They just start tearing it apart until they find what's leaking.
And I think just within all of that, making it clear that this is a roof repair.
Well, it's roof and walls. It's
Roof and what?
walls. If they don't find the leak on the roof, they work their way down the walls.
My point.
Yeah.
It's not beautification, it's structural.
Oh, yeah.
So however, we're looking as we move forward, just making that clear and stuff. Thank you.
Is that $200,000 then what they estimated as the high end of that? Because when you say we can't quote and we're gonna open it up and see what we find,
That
It's
is,
not a
that is
good-
not even a quote. That is
you just gotta,
Pandora's box. They said it could cost upwards of $200,000, depending on what they find, how far they have to go, and what they need to do to make it look. You know, they can't tear off, let's say, half the dome and replace that half. They'd have to replace the whole dome as far as the copper goes, because your appearance won't be the same. That's where we run into the problems. And it's, again, it's Pandora's box. It's, once you start, you just gotta keep going, and you need to have the funds available to do it.
and you said there are no cupola contractors out there, people specialized in
In flat iron soldering.
flat
The
iron
copper.
soldering.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it has to be that way because it's historic.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that was all replaced in 1999,
Right.
completely replaced. It wasn't just, when we renovated City Hall, that
Yep.
whole roof was put on.
Yep, the roof and the cupola, they did all the facade. And also those 4 windows that are in the knee walls, the round windows, those have probably 2 cases of caulk in it, holding the glass in. Those need to be replaced. So that sidewall facade needs to come off so that they can get at those round windows to replace them.
So that was done in 2009 and we already
No,
have.
99.
1999, okay,
26 years ago.
okay. I was gonna say that was quick for.
Leaking for, that's a
lot of
cupola for you
leaking.
though. Like,
Well, the
we'll fix
problem with
it.
that is.
That's a cupola, you can fix it.
Oh, did, I did.
It's not gonna last,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it started leaking 10 years ago, they were saying, that's, yeah,
Yeah.
The
sad.
problem
but
is, it's
that's-
all wood, you know,
Yeah.
the wood windows. It is really, other than getting an 85-foot boom lift, which is what I use to go up there and rebuild them, so that you can paint them, maintain them. You know, they should have put a vinyl window in.
Can you go to the Historic Preservation Commission and try to get something that's a little longer lasting?
Oh, yeah, we're if it comes to the point, well, the round windows anyway, we're replacing with vinyl.
You have to get permission.
I don't have to, it's the same with the fire department windows, we're replacing the face trim with those with vinyl. They don't have a problem with a modern product as long as the aesthetics are
Looks the same.
the same.
Yeah, I have a lot of empathy for this one. Our house, total roof repair, replaced 2016 in our house, cupola leaks. Had a roof person out there twice, $1,000, cupola leaks. So they're pricey ones.
It's like putting one of those
Skylights.
skylights in.
No, sky leaks.
Sky leaks.
It's the same thing, my parents put a skylight in their house and it
Sky
leaked
leaks
forever. They
leak on
finally
metal
pulled it out
roofs.
and roofed over it because they just couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
Anytime you pay for a hole in the roof, you're asking for trouble.
Don't matter what
Yeah,
Santa Claus is gonna bring through that hole.
Start a water park up there, Ellsworth Splashtown.
You could, I've been up there on
Slide,
heavy
slide
rain
right
days,
down.
it's like a rainforest up there on that spiral staircase.
Yeah.
Then we can see, we're getting a little lengthier into the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Library, I'm sorry, Sarah, we brought this to the front, but I probably should have brought the school to the front, too.
Only a few more left. Okay, library. Library has 3 requests. The first one is their building renovations, which actually is a request for matching funds to a federal grant. They are going to be submitting a grant for $6 million. I would like to just point out that the HVAC and sprinkler that are also requested by the library are included in that renovation request. So if they do receive funding for match on their $6 million grant request. Those other two would not be needed. They're included in the building renovations. So the library renovations, Sarah has a whole probably book, no pun intended, on the library renovations. I'm gonna try to condense it in 2 seconds here. Phase 1 includes a sprinkler system upgrade, and a new sprinkler system, correct, into the Tisdale house, because there is not one currently. You can come up here. Why don't you just come up, because I think you're just gonna have some questions.
I have to grab part of the book.
Sprinkler upgrades, fire protection, separation, other egress upgrades to make it accessible, ADA accessibility on the first floor. Phase 2 is going to address some air and water filtration, replace exterior windows and doors. Again, making things become ADA compliant. I'm paraphrasing this, Sarah, please.
There's a lot.
There is a lot. And then phase 3 includes a 1,500 square foot addition, along with some facade improvements. So that is the very brief summary of the library upgrades. And I would also point out that, this $2.5 million request is a match to the CDS funding. That funding submission is scheduled Monday.
So this is really permission, may I put in applications? It does require a match. We would like to request 3 million. We didn't even think it would actually open, but applications opened Monday. So I've begun work on it, but I stopped today, waiting to hear from you all tonight. Do we put in applications? This is monopoly money. I'm not asking for $2,500,000 on July 1st.
Just clarify, if we were to fund this, we'd like to fund it through bond. And we're not gonna be paying $3 million at once.
Yeah,
And
this,
the project would take at least a year, probably for construction. Yeah.
So at this point, we don't know what, there's nothing really to allocate at this point.
No. This is really request for permission to put in applications. And who knows, agencies across the state have gotten cancellation notices last week. So will money actually be allocated? I don't know, but if we don't go for it, then we don't get a shot.
So, it's a good point about, I'd like for you to move forward with the CDS. My sense, just from what I'm seeing in the world, is maybe there's 25% odds. So I don't want to obligate the city if there isn't a CDS, but I want it to be so that I don't know what you need from us to apply, because if it comes through, that would be incredible. And 25% is not zero. So what do you need from us? And I guess I would turn to Michelle on, what do we need to provide in good conscience, knowing that a match is required? If somehow we chose not to, they could turn back the money, which is hard to say out loud. I don't anticipate that, but I don't want to commit and talk about bonding based on the potential for congressionally designated spending, when, as you said, every day there's new announcements, and a variety of parts of our community that are targeted. So how do we move this forward?
Well, it depends. So what do you need for the applicant? Do you need to say that the council has agreed to the match? Yeah, we can't do that. I mean, we haven't.
It doesn't, we don't have to say if it's secured.
But we can't even,
We
we
can say
haven't.
that it's
This
requested.
isn't a voting.
It's a voting, and we can't really do
Yeah.
that at this budget meeting. This is for discussion only. We
but
can't.
you're saying it opens on Monday, it doesn't close on Monday.
No, it closes
Yeah,
on
no.
Monday. They gave a week. We have a week to put in
It was,
applications.
one is due on the 15th, one on the 18th.
Yeah,
King and
King
Collins.
is due on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to
We get
lose an
one.
opportunity like this, but we can't. I mean, you can say it, but we can't.
Could
Yeah, no, and
We can't unless we
Yeah.
did an emergency meeting.
Could we
Tomorrow.
ratify it at our April meeting?
It'll still be after Monday.
Yeah. What about Thursday before, like at 5:45 or something?
Let's have an
5:45?
emergency meeting and do it.
Yeah, just have an emergency meeting and then.
We can't do
there
it
might-
now, but we can
and
do that.
Add that and it's emergent, yeah, I can see just to,
But can you tell us what the verbiage is? I mean, are they asking if we support the project or if we will guarantee funding if you get the money? That's two completely different things.
Yeah.
Without having it right in front of me to read it off, from just my memory, it seems like it's more of a, does the city support the project?
Okay.
Right now, the library could scrape together by next, I mean, it usually is awarded in the summer. We would have about 500,000 for the library to contribute cash by then. This would give us enough time, we could do more fundraising between now and then, so hopefully it wouldn't be a full 2.5 million that we're asking for from the city.
That's a lot of fundraising, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that if you, personally, I mean, this is up to the council, but if you just have to say, does the council support this project? I think we could do that in an emergency meeting. If they say, do we promise to fund if it's approved, if they approve our application, that you really can't, that's too much, and there's too much discussion, and how are we going to do it, and all of that. So if we're really, in essence, if we're saying that, then we're allocating money, and we can't do that without a public hearing thing, so.
Understood.
Yeah, so if we could just find out, I think.
even on the emergency basis, you still need the public hearing piece?
No, you can't do a public hearing on an emergency basis like that, not for something like that, it's not really, I mean.
Well, it's like it's an emergency because the opportunity really did just open.
For a week.
Yes, but you're saying yes to a $2.5 million financing on an emergency basis, I don't think that's.
That doesn't, the opportunity arising suddenly doesn't qualify as an
But
emergency
we
for
have,
the
yeah,
meeting.
because we haven't even approved a project for them.
Yeah.
Well, maybe let's figure out the piece
Let's
first.
figure out
If
the
it's just a
wording.
sort of, this is the, presented to the will of the council, we have an emergency meeting, now you'll have a record of there's this 7-1, 4-3, or that it didn't get supported, vote from the council to, to move forward, then maybe that's what you need. And if not, we'll kind of do a little more research on what's in the emergency clause and if that's even possible, or if we just have to say, sorry, there's a week opening period, and if it needed 2.5 million and secured, we're not there
Yeah,
yet.
I'd have to look at the charter to see if we can, but
Is it required from the municipality or just community broadly? Okay.
So we'll take a look at that language and bring it back on
Bring it back
Thursday.
potentially.
But if we're-
Potentially, if.
Yeah, if we're not going after this, then we need to come up with a plan for what we're doing about everything else.
is it a 50/50 match? Is that, and I apologize, how much is it?
It's a 45% match.
The total's 6 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2.5.
The reason why we would put in a 3 million ask is that's typically just based on past allocations for libraries. That's the max that's awarded. So we're asking for as much as we possibly can.
How much private donation do you already have secured?
We are the recipients of a trust that we should be getting soon, and it's 230,000. That is, the only stipulation is that it has to be spent. It cannot be invested. So it is 100% going towards this project. But that makes a teeny tiny dent.
Did you said you could scrounge up 500,000?
Yeah, we have a couple other grants that we've been holding. And then we have a couple annual appeals that we've done that are being held for this also.
So this is a grant that just popped up and they gave you a week? You didn't know about it before?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Just everybody got an email.
And people didn't even think it was going to happen this year because of the last week. People had gotten emails saying that their requests were being canceled after they had been awarded money. So that's why I'm saying it's a big if that it goes anywhere, but.
Again, like I said, my odds are 25%, that's not zero. So,
So we'll look into that emergency clause a little more,
Yeah.
look into the details of if it has to actually be, or if it's more of a inclination of the council, and we'll potentially add an emergency at the top end of Thursday's meeting.
I realize this may be a crazy question, but figuring out financing before we know that we have a grant award is kind of a tough situation. What prevents the city, if they can't raise the money, in backing out and not receiving it if it's awarded? I'm asking, not saying.
you would
Just
forfeit the grant.
Just forfeit the grant.
I'm sorry?
You would forfeit the grant.
Right, but you're gonna forfeit anyway, if the way we're going.
So what's your point? I'm missing it.
My question is, what
Yeah.
prevents us from going forward and applying for the grant? And if the grant is awarded, and we can't raise the matching funds, and maybe there's a lot of clauses that I'm unaware of, never seen one in my life, then we can't do our part, and we don't get the grant. What prevents us from that?
Well, okay.
That's my question.
Unless the grant itself says that we need to have committed it before, but we wouldn't be able to vote on that anyway.
Right, but I don't know that, and I don't think anyone in this room knows that, do they?
Are you saying like we should apply for this grant? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I'm asking is there harm in applying for it? Is there something in the bylaws of this grant that prevents us from doing it? What does it say?
That's what I
Yeah,
just
that's
asked
the-
her.
yeah,
That's
we
what I
have to
just-
look at
she's
the
gotta find
language.
out.
So I think that seems to be what kind of the intent here is we're gonna dive into some of those more details, potentially put an emergency meeting on. So we had the reason for Sara to, with a straight face, apply for this grant, and that there's some council will on the 7 to blank or 4 to 3 or not, and then she can move forward with the grant, and then if it's secured, great, we keep working and we see if we can make it, or if we can't, then we don't get the grant.
I can't imagine if they sprung this out in a 7-day window, that they would expect
Yeah.
any applicant
To be
to
able to
raise
pull
that
it.
money
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
amount of
To be
time.
raised.
That's my,
But,
my thought.
again, Steve, I think there are so many projects like this one where it's been in the works for years and building towards. It's not like people are sitting at their desk and going, oh, I ought to come up with something for this. It's like, okay, I've been working on this one. That, because these come up in general, once a year, and so like, okay, we didn't make it for this year, we're gonna shoot for next year. So it's anticipated it would come and people prepare, but then the expectation was, will there be one at all?
Yeah.
So that's what the irregularity is this year, is that it's unexpected, and I don't even know what to make of the short window,
Right?
except that it isn't out of the blue, that
I
people
mean, I need letters of
prepared already.
support, so maybe
Yeah.
one of the letters is from either the council or the city manager explaining, hey, this popped up, we don't have $2.5 million right now, but we'll work towards that if we get, could that be a possibility?
I think this one could be a very nice whereas, maybe, the emergency, poor Casey will be so sad not to be here for us telling me to do it. Whereas the library is a 150-year-old old, whereas it's a community asset, and then Sara would have that as part of her document, that here's a recent council order that where, like, the city would enter into a bond or other funding agreement to move forward with this as a congressionally directed match if we were to see this application, that's what we can do on Thursday. We'll find out more details on, like, if that's not
So
enough.
that you don't have to,
No.
we can talk about it Thursday, but it's taxpayer dollars and it's bonding. And for us to say, we'll put $2.5 million into a project we haven't even seen yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's
I
insane.
don't think that that's responsible of us, but that's just my opinion.
I can't believe that's in the ask either.
I can't believe, I'm hoping that they're just saying, does the council support it? And how shall
That's
we
what I
word
was
it?
thinking it was, but
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Fingers crossed, Sarah.
So can we move on to school track?
Yeah.
Okay. The Elder School Department has one request. I think we all know what it is. We've heard about it for a bit. It's the track. Last time we talked about this at the Finance Committee meeting, I think we discussed funding the track, a third, equal parts, with the city, the school, and private funding. So memo in here, the track was, I believe, put in 1980s. It's been resurfaced once. It's past its useful life. It's creating limitations to host track meets. It's becoming unsafe and unusable for track meets, for walkers, for things like that. So the memo also outlines the cost, and in 2023, it was 800, the estimate was $800,000, and now we've estimated at $1 million for the removal and replacement of the track. Amy, do you have any other things to add
So,
or questions?
so this is, we borrowed 333,000. We put 333,000 in our budget. Do you have 333,000 in your budget, or do we have to increase taxpayers?
Not for FY '26, we don't. What we've done for FY '26 is all the lighting. So in the FY '26 budget, when I came to you for our presentation, what we've done is said that in phase 2 of our next TELP, we would do light efficiency with replacement of the lights. Because this is just the track. It doesn't include any of that. So we've committed to doing in FY '26 the lighting portion of the whole project. But in addition, we need to do the track.
Yeah, and there's a complicated note that Sarah and I worked on 6 here. This one's kind of in a different category of itself. It's a yes, but there's not sufficient in the remaining FY '25 ban, or as the general fund year one. You know, we ain't gonna get anywhere near inflation if we put this all in year one, FY '26. To me, this would be kind of priority number one on a ban bond. Plus, Amy and I have talked, a bit about this. Is a great opportunity for, for us to do some significant fundraising on this piece, potentially looking into more, like, to me, that we need to get the kind of project started on this right away, looking into how can we get costs down here to our own department, dig up the track, let's start getting more dialed in, like quotes on like the resurfacing, where we could be, and then look towards a ban bond and on future years. And then TIF funding too, it could be part of that conversation. We'd have to probably redesign our TIFs. I know Tammy and I had a little conversation on recreational trails, and maybe this is like a trail. It's a track trail, I don't know.
Just a circular trail.
That's probably a little beyond what the intent of when you all wrote that to begin with. But we could redesign the TIF to do some debt service on ban bond for that track piece as a certain level. We could consider that, or we could just consider that on future years. To me, that's this, like, it's done. We need to work on it. It's a good opportunity for us to do some shake the trees in the private donation cycle as well, which I think is an avenue I'd like to pursue more as we move forward. And then potentially a third on future bond debt service from the school, and a third on the future bond debt service from the city, and a third to be privately donated, and then as consideration of that future TIF. That's kind of where I'm putting this now, but not on FY '26 general fund.
Okay. So we wouldn't add it to debt service either for FY '26?
Yeah, if we bonded for any of this type pieces, we're not gonna get it till FY '27.
Okay.
Maybe even '28, depending on like when we actually pulled the money and did the, but to me, there's like, yeah, this one's like, it's been on the list a couple times, it's already
Yeah.
not usable, right?
Yeah, and the way Josh explained it, Josh Frost is here from Ellsworth High School. If we committed to the project right now, they could probably get to it in September. So we're already at a point where to get this done, it's gonna be the '27 spring track season for our athletes. But for community people, can they use it this summer? Yes, but as you saw in the pictures, there's a lot of issues with it. And so just trying to get it in the pipeline to know what is the plan to move forward. And then we can, plan for our FY '27 budget in the school department also, because it will affect the soccer field as well. And so we have to take into account that also.
So you wouldn't want them to start in September because you would have to
We could.
We could,
play the soccer games on the football field?
yep.
We did the year that the bleachers.
Oh, yeah.
Flew over.
Oh, yeah, I remember that year.
I did put that picture in your packet. I didn't want to bring up nightmares.
Yeah, and that's why kind of the band bond, go this route, start doing it. I haven't been in Ellsworth terribly long, but it seems like that, one of the things that makes this school really special is that excellent sports stuff. And if we can't do track in the spring, that's
So
not
we can
really.
do that off the budget cycle then.
Yeah.
That's the thought.
I have a question and a thought. Remind me what's going on with Demers Field. Is the Rotary Club working on that? That's this year? Is there public money in that too?
I can answer that there. Yep, that's actually tomorrow.
I was going to say, I want to say it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I've got it on my schedule to go over there to help out a little bit. I think some of our public works team will be over there too
Yeah.
to help them install the playground that they totally fundraised for themselves. Did an amazing job. Thank
So
you.
the playground
Rotary.
goes in tomorrow?
Goes in tomorrow.
Cool.
Plus, we are doing this summer, I think, a baseball tournament there. The state baseball tournament. So we're repaving that Boggy Brook Road.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
That's
so
an amazing road.
Is that Little League or?
Yeah, that's Little League State Championships,
Yeah,
but
so we're-
I'm appreciative because it's the road that gets to HCTC. And it's really, really bad.
And that one we asked to be considered as, our spring one for lanes, or for northeast paving, for all those purposes. The Rotary's done a great job of getting that piece in there. We thank you, council, this fall, and ratified last cycle the 1.6 million in roads. But that was our priority for the spring, get that Boggy Brook, that state tournament, put our best foot forward for that state tournament, and, have to buy.
So is there public money whether it's school or city
No.
for the Demers Field? That was all Rotary Club?
It's
No.
not in my budget at all.
Shout out to them. I couldn't remember it
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah,
right, but-
Ellsworth owns the property. Rotary originally did. They gave it to us,
Right.
or they gave it to the
This
city.
feels like about a year ago, so I'm trying to remember it.
Right, so they're doing that. Well, we will have maintenance costs potentially as a city to kind of keep up with that, but it was kind of, I think, a 50-year project, or like a 50-year anniversary
I
project.
think it's
for
the
them.
50th anniversary, I was trying to think.
Yes, it's their anniversary,
It's the 50th,
and this
yeah,
is
so-
what they did for a community service
And then we're
project.
going to continue raising funds for maintenance
Great.
going forward.
Terrific.
And they had kind of a multi-tier.
Very communicative with the Recreation Commission throughout the whole, they
Yeah.
wanted our blessing. And
Yep, like I said, I could vaguely remember it, but trying to remember the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So, a thought, we're talking about TIF for trails, and is this a trail, and it's funny. But, I've never heard or seen, public, you are welcome, come. And if there was, when this is redone, if we make a concerted effort to say, this is a public resource, if you are a walker looking for someplace, that would further justify this as a recreational trail, that it has school purpose, but if we really lean into a public purpose, I don't know how people find out about it for walking other than they just start doing it and their friends do and all, but.
I know, and that is something we talk about a lot, because the city owns that property, is my understanding, not the school. But we do the maintenance, and we have the buildings, and we do the stuff with it, which is fine, because we use it for our
Right.
athletics. But you're right, there's more we could probably do with it,
And
for sure.
I don't know if people feel welcome when they go, or if it's like sneak in and hope nobody kicks you
Well,
out.
I think sometimes people do think it's part of the school.
So it just,
So
as
it
we're
could-
talking
it
about
could
how
be.
might we do it in the TIF, but
It could be.
if we talked about this as a public recreation resource, and part of it's used for the school, that might be a legit way to lean into that TIF a little bit.
Oh, Tam?
Tammy, you want
I
that?
think you actually can already do it, because the field has been used for, Relay of Life. The entire county uses that for walking. There are big groups that go and walk the track. It's a very, very public place now.
We
Is
can
the
advertise
seniors
it.
use it?
First I've heard of it, so,
We can
yeah.
advertise it
yes.
on the new police sign with the lights.
Yeah. No,
Anyways,
it's used all the time as a public.
Go to the county
There's
and
no-
ask
there's
for
no-
funds
Because
for
that
it.
was why we
Yeah.
tried to approach the county a year, 2 years ago. We
Yeah.
tried to approach the county to ask to use some of their funding towards this project.
well, and I guess if it's
What'd
not
they
needed
say?
for TIF, I would still say, make it very clear to everyone in the public that you're welcome here.
Absolutely.
You can put some signs up.
Yeah, it's a good it's a good idea.
And
Well,
there's the public activities you were talking.
We'll talk a little more in the Parks and Rec piece too, like our recreational assets and how we utilize them, and like how do
Yeah.
you, if you want to use a gazebo at the harbor, you want to use this, like, how do you get that? You want to use this stuff at Moore Center, we just need to be better at, like, these are all
Yeah.
our great assets,
Yeah.
and,
Absolutely.
Agree.
And we
come
really
here to you-
lack signage.
yeah, and
around our
signage,
city,
wayfinding
so.
signage, and, this is all the great stuff that's here. I think it's kind of like a lot of times, oh, that's a surprise, I didn't even know Ellsworth had that. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's $1 million for a school track, which gives me
I know.
pause. But if it's a public community asset, then I can go a little easier with it.
Oh, I get it. Yes.
So, thank you.
I tried to justify that. I was like, well, is it really that bad? Look at these pictures. Like, there's just a couple of cracks. Like, we have
Charlie,
worse
we'll
roads.
go for a walk.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sarah was
I
like,
love that.
if you're trying to run on that, I was like, yeah, that's pretty terrible.
I said it's not a road, people walk on it.
Yeah, compared to some of our roads, it looks great.
That was, when I looked at the pictures, I thought, well, we have roads in worse shape, but,
Yeah.
okay.
All set?
How are we, just, can we have a concise, how are we funding this? Or if somebody asks after this, like, does it look like it's moving forward? And if so, when? What's the answer?
Yeah, consideration for TIF, consideration for band bond, but priority one in consideration. And, you know, and directionally, a third private donation, that Amy and I will kind of work together on a plan for, a third city bond debt service, a third school debt service. But if we go the TIF route, and we look at the whole, the TIF, we just dropped a bunch of debt service on a road. So that's kind of why there's freed up funds here. If we want to reallocate it here, it means we're not going to reallocate TIF to things like Hart Ellsworth. We're not going to reallocate TIF to things like this. So those would be some of the tougher conversations that we'll say, should we have that TIF reallocation towards this, and that's what we want to do with the TIF, or do we want to be a band bond, future debt service for the school and the city to carry into future years? That's just, we're going to have to iron that out. But this one is like priority one.
But I think just to John's question, we don't know yet how it's gonna get.
Yeah. But
That's
it's a
Thursday
priority.
that we talk.
It's a priority, but we just don't know how we're gonna do it quite yet.
Okay.
Are the track athletes able to even use that? Are people coming to use it right now still?
Yeah, we're,
Come on up, Mr. Frost.
Just put signs that say, caution, frost heat.
well,
Don't run too fast.
You know, no pun on that.
Just post it.
Well, and you said, like, could the public come use it? And right now, I don't really want the public using it because it's not safe. So you're looking at, walk or run at your own risk. But yeah, the track team is practicing there every day that they can. We're hosting one track meet at the high school for this year, mostly because I wanted my seniors to have that last home track meet experience. But also understand that when we're hosting track meets, they're not doing the best times because the track is just,
They've gotta watch their feet.
yeah, they gotta watch their
Yeah.
feet. There's no grip, there's no bounce, there's no, they're not running fast. So yes, we're using it for practice, but
And normally you would have more meets there, like you would open that up to
yeah,
more.
normally we'd host at least two, be in the running for the league championship meet, throw our hat in the, in for the state meet, which again would bring in, right, lots of schools to the community, and but we can't do that. We just,
Does the junior high use it for track meets?
The middle school, yeah, they use it for their practices, and I think they're hosting 2 track meets. But it's a nice facility. I ran on it 30 years ago. But it hasn't changed. Nothing's been done to it since.
When I'm just thinking of a bond, like, what's the amount of time we get at it? 20 years?
25 in the memo.
20, yeah, they say 25 years with resurfacing probably every 8 to 10. And by that, you gotta understand that underneath that, there's gravel, dirt, there's a pavement, and then there's the track surface itself. So that's why they're saying nothing's been done to the very bottom in 20, well, more than 30, probably 40 years. So that's why it's time to take it down to nothing and then bring it all back up. Even if, I don't know if it was in the pictures, but our long jump and triple jump runways, we have a portable runway on it right now. It's just that black runway, because when kids run to jump, where they've been jumping for how many years since it's been resurfaced, there's nothing there, so. It's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May we have a little break,
Yes.
please?
Are we gonna, I wanted to say something broadly
Sorry.
about this, if we're gonna shift gears after that, then it can wait for a break, I just didn't wanna lose the chance to wrap up on the capital.
Well, we have two more.
Oh, we do?
We have enterprise, it's in.
Oh, I thought they were the same as what we'd already talked about, it was just
Not-
their share.
There's a
Water,
I'm all for a 5-minute break.
water
couple,
has additional
Okay.
requests.
Yeah, water has 3 more.
I got excited.
We're back.
There we go.
Cupcake.
So,
Oh, now we
Yeah,
are,
now
Charlie.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we have two more department requests. These are from our enterprise accounts. The first one is wastewater. Wastewater does not have any additional requests other than their portion of the third, the 60%, 20%, 20% for the excavator and trench box, and the camera is a third. So that's the only thing in wastewater, and that would be funded through their enterprise revenue, not the general fund.
This is so good.
Any questions?
Likes that enterprise capital request, Michelle.
Okay. Moving on to the final department, the water department. Similar to what I just mentioned with the wastewater, the excavator at 20%, trench box at 20%, and camera at a third. And they have three additional requests: a pipe fusing, a skid steer, and a standby generator. So let's start with the pipe fusing. This is an HDPE pipe fusing machine. Is my understanding that we are transitioning from the iron pipe and into the, Reggie, you're up.
The other type of pipe?
To the high-density polyethylene processor pipe. And so this fuser is going to allow us to fuse the pipes on site and fix any breaks. Anything else you want to add, Reggie?
So now it's Reggie Winslow, water department superintendent. So this has been out for a while. It's plastic pipe, it's weldable. There are two ways to do this. There is what is called the butt fusing process, which you do above ground. And then there's the electrofusion. It's a coupling, you put it on, two electrodes on it, hook it to a generator, and it melts the plastic pipe. Much easier to do down in a ditch versus carrying a machine that's big, heavy, down into a hole. But otherwise, it's flexible, it's cheaper than ductile iron, considerably. With tariffs, I'm not sure what that's gonna do, but
So this is the pipes that bring water to the city, right?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Sorry, I was trying to figure out if this is part of the plan.
yes.
The other piece of equipment is the skid steer, which is similar to a little Bobcat. This would be for, to replace their either renting or digging materials up by hand, some snow removal, performing repairs. In their memo, they state that they rely on manual labor or rented equipment for these tasks, so this would just be more efficient. This did not get moved forward in the manager's recommendation. This is the only item from the water department that we did not move forward. The other item was the on-demand generator for the Dollar Hill standpipe for when we lose electricity. If we do have a power interruption, it is a critical component of getting the water to the water distributions, a critical component of the water distribution system. So having that on-demand generator is essential for when the power does go down to maintain water supply throughout the city.
What do you have now, Reggie?
Nothing.
You don't have a generator?
Well, we have just a little portable one.
Really?
so the power goes out, you run the portable one up
And
there.
it's, lately, it's been going out on the Bucksport Road quite a bit. That's our main standpipe. So that actually, from that point, it's all gravity into the system. That standpipe tells the plant when to start up, when to shut down.
So yeah, that one, for the generator, felt like that one was a pretty necessary piece. The fusing too kind of is in line with if we're gonna start really replacing more mains and doing these pieces and kind of doing, that one could be, the skid steer, to me, that was in the future bond ban cycles as we're thinking about things. Also, we did look into kind of the water department, like cash on hand essentially, that this level with the 3 S's is within like what their cash on hand is over there. Wastewater, no problem, there's, they've been pre-funding, Mike is in that account. We are starting on the water department, that's one of the requests this year, is to start funding a larger reserve account so that we'll have more capacity in the future to manage these pieces without having to be so much on the year one on the ratepayer. Not that, and just a reminder that these ones would be ratepayer pieces. These are not tied into the budget. And to your point before, Nancy, I think it was Nancy, you know, on the excavator at 51,000, and then it's, you know, like 100,000 for the highway department. That one's like the 2020 60. Everything else, because that one felt like it's a little more in the highway department than the other two. The other ones are a third, and a third.
Okay, thanks.
The ethylene pipes, that's like similar to PEX water, do you know, just like.
It's
drinking
fairly
safe?
similar, yes. It's soft.
It's like a city standard for drinking water distribution.
Yes, a lot of towns are going to HDPE.
Do you have, this is probably an answer for a different conversation, but like a projection of how quickly, how many of the water pipes that exist will be converted over time to the new?
I don't, it'll be as we go. We have talked about replacing Dean Street and using HDPE.
Excuse me.
So that's kind of in concert of what we're doing with the highway and the whole public works department, reimagining the projects that we do and trying to bring value to the city. So, you know, Dean Street's a perfect example. It's had 6 breaks, right? So if the city wanted to pay an outside contractor to come in and redo Dean Street, that'd be a serious amount of money. We think, talking to my guys, talking to Reggie, that we use HDPE, we can replace that water main in-house, and the city wouldn't have to shell out the big bucks to pay a contractor to come in and do that work for us. And so it kind of goes in concert with what we're trying to do in reimagining the highway department to be able to take on some bigger projects and really give the city some value, as opposed to what we're spending with outside contractors now.
And it is part of the CIP as well, to just try to have an understanding of all of that, our utilities mapped, so we can keep track of what is getting updated on a regular basis through an online platform like a GIS mapping. Okay, if there's no other questions, the final recommendations, just an overview, is city manager recommendations for the FY25 ban is $242,000. The highway portion of the excavator, trench box, camera, and the two vertical balers would come out of that. FY26 general fund is $68,000, and that would be the police station sign, the police station radio console, if the dispatch position is approved, and the Knowlton Park splash pad resurfacing. And then the FY26 ban bond, which will change to 27, would be, or however we're gonna fund it, I guess we can just put an asterisk on that. It might be TIF funding or a combination of such, is the $666,666 for the track. And that's the city's portion and the school's portion. So that's just a quick summary.
And I know we're kind of through a lot of unit tonight. We can come back, we'll revisit this on Thursday, or maybe, I think, Michelle, it's seeming like we're gonna probably need one next week, as we'll get through a decent amount next, most of the departments we can go from the book really don't have many new requests. It'll really be capital. I have some more details in the staffing, but this would be a great example. And if we don't want to do the dispatcher, my recommendation, that's, takes out 115,000, including fringe, from FY26, and the 28,000 for the dispatch piece. We'll pull that out. If we do want to go with the dispatcher, we got to keep that 28,000 in there in capital. That one's kind of non-negotiable if we, those are in some ways related. And then the other pieces, if there's, you'd like to bring the plow into the current ban cycle, which there's still a little bit of surplus there, and we could reimagine that, we could do that. We could maybe bring in, look at the pieces, or maybe it's the paving for the police station at 125,000, you'd like to pull that in. There's some that are outside of that, or if for replacing tankers 4, we really want to do that in FY26, when we want to have a first payment of the lease, and we want to add 100 and some thousand for the first lease payment in FY26. And we don't want to just wait until the next bond cycle. We could consider that too. So I think those will be the council discussions on Thursday and beyond for that side.
Okay, Thank you.
Sarah
Oh.
did, she did read that. Do you mind stepping up for just a second? Sorry, wrong Sarah. Sarah. So, you want to tell us what you,
Do you want me to read it?
yeah, if you want. Just a little bit.
Okay. Do you have the match contribution in hand? If no, please indicate how your organization plans to obtain a matching contribution toward the project.
So with that, we don't have to match, and so I don't think that we would need to have an emergency meeting unless you wanted to put from the council, a recommendation for the project.
For a letter of support.
Or a letter of support, as counselors. We can do a letter of support as a council as a whole. We can do a letter of support from Charlie, and I don't think, and Tim, you have to, I don't think it would be bad if each counselor gave a letter of support as long as they weren't talking on behalf of the full council.
I think I can only have 3 letters
Do you only have
total.
3 letters?
Could we just have a letter of support from the project? Does it have to talk about the grant match or these other things? We could do an emergency meeting with a letter.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, a letter of support from individuals, absolutely.
But not as a council, you can't have just a
But as,
general letter.
you can't say something like that on behalf of the council if the whole council hasn't approved to do it.
But I just heard her saying too, you can only submit 3 letters of support.
that's
So
what
if
I
we had
think.
one from Charlie representing the city without committing to the match, but that we support it with
And you
all
could
of
have
the
one from the
whereases we could
trustees.
come up with.
You'll have one from the trustees.
I wasn't planning on it. In my meetings with Colin's office, they recommend patron letters from the
Oh.
public.
Oh, well
Have
then-
you, Nancy,
Yeah,
have
so
you
then
heard?
get one from Charlie and then 2 from patrons and. And I don't think we'll need
You
an
don't need an
emergency
emergency
meeting.
No, I don't think so
Okay.
either, with that wording.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Cool.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right, well,
Before we leave, capital, I just wanted, we're going to pick this up again Thursday, that where I'm sitting now is, I see the sidewalk plow as a definite safety issue when I see people walking in the road. And even the way that the current things we have plow them, they're still iced. There are times I still walk in the road because the sidewalks are not safe. So I think that $100,000, given all the conversations we've had about sidewalks, I think that one's critical. And then the other thing that was compelling tonight for, I'll say immediate, and figure out what that means, is tanker 4, where the, being able to go from 1,250 gallons to 2,000 on site can, I don't want to overplay it, but that could be a life and death impact for somebody to have that much water on site. So I don't know what that does, looking at the mill rate, looking at how do we pay for it. But it's like with the general budget, nothing here makes you roll your eyes. This is all credible, legitimate investments. But I think the sidewalk plow is within what we could do now. I don't know how we would do the tanker 4, but I'm hearing that one loud and clear as an issue. So that's just what I'm thinking now, and we can pick it up on Thursday.
So what I've asked Charlie to do for Thursday is let's look at the budget and then what he's recommended as a whole. So this is where the budget stands with all of Charlie's recommendations. And then these are the bigger pieces of it. So all of the different positions that have been asked for, that have been asked for and what he's approved and the full cost of those, benefits and everything. And then also, so then we can look at, okay, administration. This is for all of the departments within administration. Does it, if you look at your budgets, and do you have any concerns or questions on Charlie's recommendations? And then you do the same thing for Public Works, and the same thing for Fire, and the same thing, all the way through. And then we can look at the changes and we can prioritize the larger things. We don't need to go line by line, I mean.
Right, we've done that.
But if you're looking at what we've talked about and where it stands now, and then go through the budget that way, I just think it's an easier way to have those kind of discussions.
so just for clarity, so kind of take administration of a whole and pull out the larger pieces, but not going like left to right like we're gonna clerk elections, like those areas are pretty minor track changes.
No, like I said, not, so by section, like administration, like Public Works.
Sure.
let's look at Public Works. I've got notes on some things, like for questions, or do we really need to do that this year type thing. But yeah, that way we can have a discussion on each of these sections, and everyone is comfortable with how we're moving on and how it affects, and you can set priorities.
Yeah, and that's much more manageable for Thursday. We might not make it to the 100% of the line there, depending on how, stamina of
Yeah.
council, but if it's not each piece, if I could just lump in administration, if I could lump in public works, we go back to capital improvement, because it's really, and we have all the staffing requests detailed out here, which we can go over more. Those, there's really only probably a dozen of those that are in the larger pieces. And there might be a few that I've missed, but most of it that we have in Ashley's track changes, that are smaller things that we looked into. The clerk's budget went down a little bit or the tax budget, because it's now a mix of tax and clerk versus doing both, so that's why it went down a bit, but we don't need to go into that in detail.
Like I said, I really feel like we've gone line by line. and
Gone line by line, I'll pull those pieces out, but we can clump them into pieces of the budget and.
Get a batches, it feels like we're ready to look at batches.
Batches.
That makes sense.
Okay.
I have a question it doesn't need to be answered now, and I don't even know who to ask it of, but if we look at, you've got the remaining ban from fiscal year 2025, it doesn't mean we have to spend it. But is it possible to split, if there was a decision to go ahead with a major investment, that some of it is paid with that ban, but then there's still 6 figures left over? How do you?
You gotta fund it.
I understand that. What would the other options be? They would be either from, and all of these are capital, I'd hate to just take them out of the fiscal year 26 budget.
Or it's the next, I'm kind of maybe thinking of the tanker 4, and it would be in the next bond cycle. And that's sort of, talked about this previously. There are some cities, especially the larger ones, that have their general budget year, but then they just, they have a larger, bigger capital projects or roads that's really on more of a bond cycle that they sort of size appropriately to their, and once we have but I might put the track and then maybe even tanker 4 in that category of a little bit more immediate. And, if we need to go out to ban for the tanker, and we feel like we need to make that a July, August conversation for our next ban round, that would future impact. We pull out the ban, we can move forward with it, and then that's probably FY '27 or even FY '28 by the time we pull the ban, make the payment. Or maybe we think about a lease and we kind of hold the lease payment for a year like Mike had, and we, have a placeholder as in capital equipment reserve to fund it,
okay.
and then it's not showing up. So there might be some other options that if we're not putting it in FY '26 general fund money, or there's just not sufficient on our ban we already have in place to kind of edit over, that there's we kind of did this with the roads this fall, right? We really wanted to do roads, we couldn't put in FY '26, so that's why I went charged into the fall to bring that road package together, and to me, this maybe be the track, tanker 4, and maybe some other pieces that you all think.
And then one more question for strategy when we get there is there an interest rate advantage to fully drawing down the fiscal year 25 ban versus what we think we're gonna hit? I don't know if those are out yet in the fiscal year 26, either ban or bond. Was that a wicked good deal? I don't remember what the interest rates were, but.
Well, the federal government right now is talking about getting rid of,
Municipal bond interest-free, yeah.
Yep.
I believe I sent my letter to Collins on that.
I mean, we're kind of we're in a ban right now, so we're paying the interest in the ban. It's really the interest on what the next ban would be. It wouldn't be the bond. The next bond is going to be when we convert our ban for the roads into a bond in the fall. So that will be the kind of trigger. Now, we could ban again and then convert both the roads and tanker and this into the bond at that interest rate. I think.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Raising it now so that it can be part of the conversation, because when we do bring it up.
I think that because Ashlie, and I know it's buried in this book somewhere, but the debt service, so as we're talking about a new ban or a new bond, when other ones drop off and where that's gonna put us as far as payments in future years, because that's another thing, and especially the water department, because they're gonna be having that plan. And so we're already gonna have to have a rate increase for that, so I just kind of should we be having a ban cycle every single year? At what point does that just become aggressive on top of all of our leases? I guess is what I'm.
Yeah. Overall debt service schedule.
Yeah, the water department's a bit different than enterprise, and we did talk about that increase this year. They're gonna go to a rate case to go to 7, so we'll start kind of forward funding.
So what does that rate case do if we plan on, with the water treatment plan and with, you know, other
Right.
purchases?
And maybe even
large
penciling
purchases?
that bond in with what would incur and then when we know where we're at, because even if we do, when we do go to bond for that and how it kind of comes back, that's probably not like until an FY 29, 28.
And we're not even positive we're still gonna get those appropriations that we're planning on. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Sorry, we're burning some time, Mike.
Hopefully makes the next meeting go smoother, because we've got this stuff out on the,
Okay, so
I would hope so.
I'm gonna try to be brief and abbreviate this a little bit, but not so much that we can't get the full extent of what's going on, so. This is basically a discussion about the solid waste, with the city of Ellsworth, what we're doing now, where we're at, and then what we could be doing in the future to be better at that. This is just an overview, we can skip that, everybody knows what the solid waste does. Hours, what the services are, so we could move on from that. So current cost hours that we're running into with the solid waste that I'm trying to address. So we have a hauling contract right now that expires in June of 2025, they want us to renew. We have a curbside pickup contract that expires in 27, so we're not gonna do a whole lot of talking about that tonight, because we have some time to think about it. And then we have a final disposal cost where we are currently in a contract with Eagle Point Energy, who took over Park. It's being bypassed right now and going to Juniper Ridge. They have given us a 15-year contract that actually reduces the cost per ton that they want to charge. We actually met with them. We're going to go tour that facility next week. We have signed a letter of intent with them to look at entering into the 15-year contract now, because it's favorable for us at this point in time, but it doesn't commit us to anything. It just keeps them from adding the cost CPI onto it the next time that we want to revisit it. So it's a letter of intent. It is not a commitment to enter into the 15-year contract. It just gives us the time to investigate it, talk with you guys about it, and then at some point, if you guys think it's beneficial, then we'll sign the final. We'll enter into that final contract. So, current contract we have for hauling. So right now, we pay $515 a trip to go to Juniper Ridge. We should be going to Perk. I mean, in Perk, it would be less money. It would be $478, but they can't take it right now. So in the contract, they're allowed to bypass it to Juniper Ridge, and we're paying the extra money to go to Juniper Ridge at $515 a trip. We run 2 containers also. Those are $225, so it's $450 a month for us to rent the containers, $5,400 a year. In the previous fiscal year, the city of Ellsworth, we spent approximately $45,000 on just hauling the containers from our transfer station and the containers for curbside to Juniper Ridge. Curbside pickup is a big one. Last time we did a contract with them, it doesn't come up until 27. They went from $70,000 a year to $208,000 a year. I think Michelle may remember that, Tammy. The cost increase was so much that we actually financed $50,000 of that increase over the 5-year term of the contract. So each year, we're actually paying back a little bit more to have the $50,000 come off the front end of that contract. So right now, the annual cost, the monthly cost is $21,150 a month. That's $253,800 a year. And then, so the current contract has an escalator for CPI and fuel surcharges. So the base amount was $208,000 a year, but right now, we're paying $253,800 a year. And then final disposal is what I just went over with you folks. So right now, we're paying $91 per ton with Eagle Point, which used to be Pearce. The new contract they'd offer starts at $89 instead of $91 a ton. And it caps the CPI, I think, increased between 2% and 4%. So those are a couple of things that we're looking at that are more favorable for us. But like I said, we haven't signed the contract with them. We signed a letter of intent to freeze the CPI for this year so they don't add it on. And then we'll have to have a bigger discussion over whether we want to enter into that contract. And then at that point, you guys can authorize Charlie to sign the contract if you want. But we still have another 5 or 6 years on the current Eagle Park contract. I just have to go through that and see what the escalators and CPI and things like that are on there to see what we'd be looking at over the next, the term of that contract, and if it's, how much more beneficial it is for us to move into the new contract. So that'll be a bigger discussion.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is there, so the municipal review committee in their Hamden plant, are they opening that or have they opened it?
The Hamden plan is fiberite?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
We're not, they're not, I don't know, we're not with them.
I know we're not with them. Have they opened?
No. They're retooling it to try and open it. But right now, we're locked in. I didn't want to touch this, to be honest with you, because I don't know what's gonna happen with Perk, and I don't know what's gonna happen with
That was my question before.
fiberite. And so, the town of Warrington bought Perk. And the town of Warrington and their partners are spending millions and millions of dollars right now to bring the Perk facility, to upgrade it and bring it back online.
Didn't they just have a fire?
They had a fire on the floor, because they had debris that were left in the building, but it didn't completely destroy the plant, it just was contained to that area of the plant. So like I said, we're going to go tour it next week, to see what they have going on out there, so we'll have more information for you. But when you look at how much those three things cost, right, it's $439,000, it's 75% of the budget for the solid waste department. Okay, and so then if you go on from there, now we look at what do we make for revenue from solid waste. So we have trash stickers, scale revenue, recycling revenues, commercial solid waste, which is how much we charge Fletcher's Landing, and then the new e-waste program that we started up. Okay, so if you look at, this is from 2024, this is the actual money from 2024. We got $220,000 for the trash stickers, $10,710 from scale revenue. Recycling revenue was $18,636. The commercial solid waste billing was $21.54 to Fletcher's Landing. Not sure why that's short, we'd have to look at it. And then the e-waste had just started up, so we didn't really generate much from e-waste at that time. But the revenue is $252,000, okay? And so if you move on to the next one, so expenses, revenue, we have a $187,000 deficit, 24 that was paid by the taxpayer. That was the shortfall, okay? And now, year to date this year, so this is actual numbers from this year, so far, our expenses in the solid waste area are $450,209, and our revenue that's come in so far this year is $205,625. So we already have a deficit for this current fiscal year of $244,584. So, to put it bluntly, we're losing money hand over fist. Okay, so, all right, so now we start looking at, okay, what are some solutions that we can do to stop this from happening? Because the ultimate goal, I think that Charlie and I and the Public Works team kind of agree on is that at some point, we could make this into an enterprise fund if we managed it properly. And so how do we get that? And so we can increase the price of the trash stickers by $1. We typically sell around 75,000, so that would be a $75,000 increase in revenue if we sold the same amount of trash stickers. And these are all just suggestions that you know, we've come up with in ways that we hope we can try and get back to good and not stay in the bad. One of the big things that I think really needs to happen is we need to do away with residential scale use. So at the transfer station, if you drive your vehicle in with 2 bags of trash in it, you drive over the scale and get weighed, and then you throw your 2 bags of trash away, you're gonna get charged probably $1.10, I think. And it can be billed to you. So you get billed for $1.10, which means you're gonna buy a stamp and envelope. We're gonna ship you the bill for $1.10. And oh, by the way, if you don't pay that bill, well, there's a 1% late fee on that bill, which we're gonna send you another notice. That's gonna cost however much money for stamps and envelopes and somebody to do it, for like $1.10 or $1.11 or $1.12 or whatever that is. It really doesn't make sense for us to be operating the residential scale this way. And the scale only works in increments of 20 pounds. So if you come on the scale with 25 pounds, you're probably gonna get charged for the 20 pounds. And if you go on the scale with 33 pounds, maybe you bump up to the 40. But either way, the problem that you run into is, one, we're just losing money by billing people. We're processing these payments. Somebody's taking the time to create these bills, stuff these envelopes, ship these envelopes out, we're paying postage. And if they don't pay it, they don't care because it's $1 something. So we need to look at that. And then the other thing that you run into, the thing that's really killing us is and our transfer guy gave us an example the other day. The guy came in with a pickup truck full of bags of trash. And he went over the scale, offloaded, went back over the scale. And when the number of bags, I think it was around 12 bags, would have been $3 a sticker. That would have been $36. But he only ended up paying half of that or less because he went over the scale. And so I think we really need to reevaluate how we're doing the scale. I think either you need to put a minimum on it so that if you want to ride over the scale, you're going to have to spend at least 20, whatever you guys decide, 20 bucks, I don't know. Or we just don't have the residents going over the scale. We just save it for the commercial, like Hammond Lumber or somebody big that's going to bring bulk stuff. And then the other piece of it is I think we should look at doing away with the billing, especially on the residential side. We have the capability of taking cash up there. We have the capability of taking cards up there. And so I think it would just be beneficial to the city to just have the people pay for it there, and we don't have to worry about billing them and whether they pay their bill and collecting it and all of that stuff.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Did the solid waste committee meet?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, and this is the recommendation of the solid waste committee?
No. We haven't made any decision. It was just,
She just wanted us to give a rundown on what we're doing now and what the possibilities are for the future
Oh, okay.
to paint a bigger picture.
Okay,
And so that's what we're doing.
okay. Sorry, I just was trying to figure.
Yep.
Are we losing on, we're losing on residential trash, but are we losing on commercial when we're using the scales as well?
I haven't evaluated that piece of it yet. But I know they're not coming across the scale for the minimum, so I would have to see. The other thing that is gonna be next is, right now, we're charging $110 a ton for coming across our scale. That number hasn't changed. We are looking at other towns, which was suggested by the solid waste committee. The only one I have right now is in Southwest Harbor. They charge $184.50 a ton to go over theirs.
Why aren't we comparing to the scales right behind the transfer station? Because somebody can choose to go right behind or, right? Is that not how that works?
No, they can only bring demo debris to DM&J, which would be wood and sheetrock and things of that. They can't bring household trash to them.
You can. You can.
I think there's two.
I don't think they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Are you supposed to?
I end up using that a lot for my own business, but that's a lot of, household trash back there as well. So I just didn't know why we weren't.
And I don't know if there are private garbage collectors, because there are some private garbage collectors that have a contract with DM&J to bring their stuff there. I can't speak to that.
Well, maybe you remember, but I thought that was the agreement with them going behind there, they would take our demo, but we would continue on with our MSW stuff.
Yeah.
so.
I thought that was too.
They were
So,
gonna
that
take
might be
us,
something-
yeah.
When was the last time we negotiated with the county for plantation aid, or whatever it's called now?
We haven't that I know of.
Because when that price went up, we should have gone up
Oh, yeah.
drastically with
Yeah.
the county.
Yeah, they're only paying, was it $450? Yeah, yeah, $4,500 a year or something like that. Yeah, no, yeah.
There used to be a contract with the county, and it was negotiated with how much they paid, because they oversee the plantations.
Yep.
And they should be negotiating that, and there was supposed to be an escalator clause on that.
Yeah, so I mean,
So,
I'll go back, we can go back and try and find that contract and see when it was done and what it says, but.
Yeah, I think we ought to renegotiate that, because it's
Oh,
costing us a
yeah.
lot more than that to go up to
Yeah.
plantation.
And there's definitely something wrong with the commercial waste. We've taken in way more than $2,200, and I think it has something to do with recording of the accounts
It is.
receivable through wastewater.
So, last week, I did a little deep dive into it.
Okay.
And the account was coded incorrectly out front, because those payments get taken in a trio, so when they come over, they were going into a different account. So I actually did a journal entry last week for fiscal year '25, and the scale revenues that are coming in are at 21,000.
And the
That
commercial
makes
waste is up too.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's right,
I fixed
okay.
those accounts last week, 2 weeks ago, so those were
So.
from a finance committee meeting.
I really think we need to reimagine the scale situation and how we're handling that and what we're doing with that up there. And then the last piece, which is the piece that I'm recommending that we try and do, and why Sara said that, there may be something to do with solid waste capital, is I don't think we should renew the solid waste contract this year. And the reason I say that is because we're paying an estimated 50 grand a year to haul that. And if we bought a truck in our own containers, we could haul that without adding an additional person. Like, we have 4 Class A drivers in highway that could do that work for us.
I just don't know how the highway is gonna get
And it's
all of this
only,
work
what do they haul?
I know.
We haul it once a week right now. So it'd be 1 day a week, they would make the trip to Warrington and back to drop off the containers. And the peak of the season, the summer, the most we do is 2 times a week. And so, the truck and the containers, I believe, Brian's not here, but I think it was 280,000 for everything. So it would pay for itself literally within 6 years, it would pay for itself. And the other benefit to that, there's, I'm trying to be brief, but multiple benefits to us owning our own truck and owning our own containers. So if we had 3 containers, that means we have an extra container. We could use that container for other things in that truck. So like in the wintertime, when you're watching these guys come down here and fill up dump trucks 8 hours a day and haul snow back and forth, instead of having a 12-yard dump truck, if you have a 50-yard container, depending on what the weight ends up being, you could move a lot more snow in a lot less time. Same thing if we're out doing tree work, cutting trees down, things like that. There are other things that we would be able to use that truck and that container for that would be a big help to the city, other than just being committed to the transfer station. So, I think that's my last slide.
Yeah, and this one didn't have recommendation, but I think after Mike talked with the solid waste kind of folks, brought it back. My piece of this, and looking at my kind of final pass of the budget, which may change things around a bit, is, I originally, when I saw those big cost overruns, I was like, we got to do fees, this and that, like, let's raise an additional $200,000, but talking to Dave Soper and others, like, that's unreasonable. I put it to $100,000 in the actual manager recommendation. Kind of looking at that now, I don't know, I might even dial that back to like 50,000 in additional revenue through potential the scale adjustments. I feel like there's so many variables here. Dave Soper, who's awesome, who we just got from Blue Hill, he's got some, really good insights. He had kind of mentioned, you could increase that sticker price and you get less revenue because people are buying more dumpsters. And, it feels like we're gonna try some things to make this less of a burden on the overall taxpayer, more to the people who are actually using the trash. But, I don't think I really have the tools to hit it on the dot on it's gonna be a $60,000 increase in revenue, 100,000, buy these things. I'll probably redial the budget back into like a 50 or 60,000. But on the flip side of that, Ashlie also found some revenue that wasn't being coded towards solid waste that is 24,000 increased revenue. So I'm probably not going to, dial it all the way down to zero, but probably be more on the 50 or 75,000 in increased revenue as a guidepost for the team this year. And this piece on the truck, on the, the 50,000.
I mean, the thing I would point out about the hauling contract is there's no way it's gonna be $515. It's going to go up significantly.
It's also Casella who.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Could we lease that truck and use some surplus ban FY25 to do a year one lease on it? Or to, I don't know.
I mean, we can look into it. This was just, we met with the solid waste committee. We wanted to give the whole story to the council so they could understand what was going on up there. We're losing money at a pretty high clip. And that money is coming straight out of Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth's pockets to cover that
It's
deficit.
coming out of the single people's pockets.
Yeah. And so,
Well said.
the payback on it, I think, is good, and it's not a hard transition for us. I mean, putting our own containers in there instead of having their containers in there and have our own truck that we can haul whenever we want, instead of being on Casella's schedule when they can come and pick us up and when they don't wanna, being subject to their fuel surcharges, being subject to escalator clauses. I just really think now is a critical time if we wanna move out of the hauling contract, and it's not extensive. Like, the next piece in 2 years is gonna be trying to move out of the curbside collection contract, because that's $250,000+ a year. But that's a conversation for another time. But the hauling contract is not a hard transition for us to get out of that and move into our own space on that.
There's also the possibility for not renewing the hauling contract, but getting a new hauling contract with somebody else that could be temporary while we figure out funding for.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility here. But, yeah, I mean, my recommendation stands that I think it'd be a worthwhile investment. And if we don't have the money, that's obviously the case that we run into. But it's, to me, if you want to look at getting out of the space of bleeding money and trying to get into the space of working towards a more of an enterprise fund type situation, now is the time to start making some moves.
So, so that we, because it's after 9, if we could have the solid waste committee and Charlie, you, and figure out, take all of this into consideration and come back with a
Yep.
recommendation. And because I do, only thing I worry about, and I think you mentioned it, Charlie, is that we've got the highway department doing all kinds of stuff now. And with new equipment, there's maintenance costs, there's time, that, in the summer months, the highway department is already doing mowing and those types of things, and they're gonna be building a road, and they're gonna be doing all of these projects. Are we overextending? And that would be up to you, but I would wanna know that. But as far as everything else, like you just said, is there someone else that do we have to use Casella for our hauling? Do we, for now, buy containers and have someone else haul them for us? I mean, there's so many options.
Yeah, to me, that's kind of where I'm at in this hauling contract, which is, there is a pressure to maybe if we want to take this chunk out, go this other route. I don't know, I'm just not there yet.
There's just so
I don't
much
know,
to
Tammy.
consider.
Yeah, I just feel like we need to take a bigger picture view of the entire solid waste department before we can make this type of decision. I know you're saying you're trying to save money, and I think that's what we need, is a really good analysis of all the key pieces for it and determine what's the best step forward, not just picking up, okay, let's just raise the sticker prices, I think we need to do it as a whole, and rather than just picking the pieces.
And with the hauling contract coming up, it's just, I hate to say it,
Yeah,
like, there
and the-
probably is a better solution here, and it's coming up, but I think we kind of, maybe this is a piece that we have to have this for 2 more years, but we'll
I feel
figure
like
out.
it's being rushed because we're at the.
Yeah, I'm just not there. It's like, wow, we're definitely gonna 100% save that 50,000 each. I'm just not quite there yet, to all those other
That's my
points.
personal opinion.
Sorry, Steve?
I just like to go back one step here. You mentioned that we're paying 50 grand a year to have it hauled, correct?
Yes.
And you're telling us that $300,000 puts you in the business,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So you're talking about equipment costs, you're not talking about operational costs.
Yep.
And the 50,000 a year is operational. That's what it's costing the city, if I understood this correct, to haul that to wherever.
Super nuts,
Okay.
yeah.
Just buying the asset of $300,000 over, let's say, it's 6-year property or whatever. You know, that's just owning the asset sitting in the parking lot. That's not operational. That's a big
Yeah, the only
factor.
caveat I would point out to that, Steve, is it's not gonna be 50,000 going forward. It's gonna be a lot more than 50,000 going forward. That hauling contract, we talked to GM&J Waste, who's in the business, he couldn't believe we were getting it for $515 now. He's like, when you get the next contract, it's not gonna be that. So, it's gonna be a significant increase as far as we can tell, and that's what's kind of spurring me
And
to.
why are you roped into one company?
We're not. We're not even with GM&J. We're with Casella.
No, I understand that, but what makes you think that there couldn't be someone else doing that roll-off business?
Oh, they can. That's why we kind of reached out to Josh to see if that's something that he would be interested in, and he would be willing to bid on it if we put the thing out to bid. It was to try and gather some information, to get some information as far as, you know, what he thinks that we would be looking at.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't cost anything to solicit costs with an RFP.
No.
No, and that's, and to me, that's kind of where I'm at here, is we need to be really thinking now that when that Casella contract comes up, like, they're the only game in town, that's the big one. And how do we plan on to, like, if we're gonna get in that, because I don't want to just be whatever number they give us, there's nobody else we can go to do that. And we're gonna have to say yes, like, what would it actually take to get into the business? And what does that delta, I don't want to get into that business, I'd much prefer, but if we're in a single bidder, and they know they can charge us what they want, we need to know, so that we're not in this situation with 3 weeks before the bid's due, to say, like, actually, like, we need to hire 2 more highway folks, we need to buy this capital asset, this is what it's gonna be for operational and capital, and that delta year by year is $150,000 less than going with Casella's newest, larger jump, so that, like, what happened last time. Or we accept the larger jump, because we don't feel like we can go there. That, to me, like, we just need more time, and this next year is we gotta start doing the scale changes, maybe consider the revenue, how much further can we get along there, and these other pieces, all of them, so that when the really big one hits, you know, we can think about getting into this business or not. My hope is not. But that's kind of where I'm at.
My job is just to provide you with the data, so that you have information to figure this out. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you.
I mean, did you have any more to add, John? You were at that solid waste
No, I
committee
was-
meeting too, and
We did ask for some more specific information about the operational costs, and yes, this will pay for itself, but how long will it take because of fuel prices and because of person hours driving the vehicles? But more interestingly, I was more excited about the notion of having a different option for that single bidder in the future, and to hear that it could be possible for us to eventually get to a point where we're picking up, doing curbside hauling as well, and if that's an end goal, because, you know, we can't take too many more of these Casella increases if they're the only bidder, then what are the next, what's the capital improvement plan that gets us to that in 5 to 10 years? And if that is like, get people to buy more stickers because we want more curbside and we need some containers, that's part of the plan. That was the interesting part of the conversation that I would push forward, but that's a long game.
It's really a much bigger conversation, truthfully, because, you know, do you really even want to keep trash stickers? Like, one of the things that Dave was talking about is that when the guys go along and they're picking up the bags, they don't necessarily look at if every bag has a sticker.
They get paid either way.
That's what I'm
from
saying.
the city.
They're just trying to collect the bags as fast as they can and move on. So is that an efficient way for us to be handling this, or is there a better way to do it?
Like Brewer has its own bags, so they
Yeah.
only pick up those orange bags
Yeah.
with Brewer stuff.
Winter Harbor has its own bags, they're yellow. And so, I mean, I think there's other things that we can look at. It's a big conversation, but I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, because we're just dumping money right now, and
Yeah, and a big thanks to Mike and Amanda. I know we,
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That was-
everybody's really looking to it. It's one of the reasons I love this team, and one of the reasons we chose Mike and Amanda to kind of move forward here is their wastewater budgets have been good, plenty of reserve funding, and they're doing that same process to all these pieces, and really excited at this continued stuff here, so.
Thank you.
I know we didn't get to rec commission,
But you want to just push towards Thursday?
I do. It's
I'm good.
9:15.
Sorry, Eric.
Oh, Eric.
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, I apologize, but
so close, so far.
Yep, so we'll do rec and the
we'll do
nonprofit
rec
social
first thing
services.
Thursday. We'll even do it before the school department.
Great, we'll do that.
How's Sorry, Eric.
We'll do, and then we've got Ashley's log changes. I'll just have her send those around to you all and just kind of what's in there now. To your conversation, Michelle, we'll start with rec and social services. Those are some of the big areas of buckets that
Yeah,
we're
so
into.
I think we'll definitely need another meeting
Yep.
for these
And
conversations.
then we'll look forward to the next meeting.
More
where we can
cupcakes.
Some more cupcakes. I can't keep doing this for dinner.
I think, you know.
Yeah, what can we bring next? A veggie tray. Veggie and fruit.
I have to eat that at home.
Oh.
Yeah, you've got that healthy.
I'll get you
food at your
chips and
house.
dip.
Um,
Here, someone say.
And my watch keeps going off because the kitchen time is going off.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're
And
good.
I'm like, what is going on with my watch?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, Eric.